second just to see if we got the audio working. I always do a quick test. You'll hear the test in 1 second. Today, we're going to talk about, because everybody loves to swear, Enshittification, which is a book I started reading in one of my favorite places, Glenview Public Library. Haven't finished it yet, but the first few pages I thought had some really valuable and interesting insights that we can apply to Freemasonry. But that is the first hour in. That's after the first hour. The first hour, we just hang out, chat, talk about whatever, wait to see who joins. Please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and thank you all for being here. Once again, let's chat about Freemasonry. By the way, I realized I have a mistake. I kept saying that the Illuminati, Bavarian Illuminati of Adam Weishaupt, was formed in 1777. It was actually formed in 1776. I got the date wrong by 1 year. So there you go. I got that incorrect. That's a big mea culpa to anybody who may be watching this. I was off by 1 year. 1776, not 1777. I'll make a note of that in Facebook somewhere, some of my social media. See, my collar's okay, because my collar's always ugly on these things. Thank you for hitting the like button. Thank you for hitting the subscribe button. Let's wait to see who joins. Please take a moment. As I said, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Today, we're going to talk about Enshittification, which is a very fun thing to say. But for the time being, let's wait to see who joins. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear it. And also, don't forget, tonight on my personal YouTube channel at 6:30 Eastern, we are going to be chatting or live streaming together with my friend Smokey the Clown. So we'll see how that goes. He's a cool dude. I like him a lot. And yeah, I look forward to seeing him. But for now, let's wait to see who joins. Any thoughts on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear them. And I hope everybody's having a great, great day. Almost the weekend. It is the 29th, so we're almost there. Tomorrow's Friday. We survived this very cold, bitterly cold winter. So congratulations to anybody who may have made it through. By the way, tomorrow, Tim Hortons is going to start selling Special Olympics cookies, or sorry, Special Olympics donuts here in Canada. So get yours. Honestly, I probably could. I think there are a lot of people, a lot of motorcycles are now designed to be ridden by people with different disabilities, including having no legs. They maybe have three wheels or some sort of special stabilizers. I wouldn't be shocked if there were special motorcycles designed for people with no legs. It would not surprise me or shock me at all. Um, so yeah, I mean, I have never ridden one, on my own. I remember I had a cousin who had a motorcycle, and I rode on his motorcycle when I was a kid. Like I sat in the front and he drove me around, which was quite fun. That was in England, but it's the last time I did it. Okay, so then I guess I could with support wheels, but I have no particular interest. I don't even have a license for a car, let alone a motorcycle. I'm sticking to public transit and public transport for the time being. Um, I have not. I don't know if you're asking me that because you've been cajole, because you've been seeing things about Masonic conspiracy theories that say we have spaceships, or you saw my stuff about Buzz Aldrin or NASA, whatever it is. But no, we do not. I've never flown a spaceship. I would love to fly a spaceship. I think that would be a lot of fun. But I have never flown a spaceship myself. We're going to keep hanging out. Please take a moment, hit the like and subscribe button. Again, any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear them. Um, oh, well, there you go. I do not have a spaceship underneath my house. Despite what some people may say, I'm very sorry to disappoint you all. Now, if I did, I would not be here. Believe me, I would be on the spaceship traveling to Mars or the moon, or who knows, wherever it might be that I need to go. But I would not be here right now. That's for sure. Is it? I did not know that. Let me see. Oops. According to this, International Day to Combat Islamophobia is Sunday, March 15th. But statement by Prime Minister Mark Carney on the National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City mosque attack and action against Islamophobia, January 29th, 2026. Today, we remember and honor the lives of Ibrahima Berry, Mahmoudo Tenu Berry, Khaled Belkemi, Abdelkrim Hassan, Azadine Sufyan, and Abukar Thabti, please forgive any bad pronunciations, who were brutally murdered in the Islamophobic attack at the Centre Culturel Islamique de Quebec in Sainte-Foy, which also have 19 people injured. The horror of that day remains a solemn reminder of the pervasiveness of Islamophobia and the devastating consequences of the hatred. It is our duty to match remembrance with responsibility and build a country where all Canadians can live openly, freely, and safely. The government is taking decisive action to address the horrifying rise in hate and hate-motivated crimes across our communities, including through Canada's Action Plan on Combating Hate. We are also committed to engaging with Canadians across the country, including through reforms to the Canadian Community Security Program, to help communities effectively address hate-motivated crime. Our government stands with the Muslim community against hate and remains steadfast in our commitment to build a country where Canadians of all faiths can thrive. So there you go. Hopefully Freemasonry can help in that goal of creating communities in which all faiths can strive. Manitoba is doing a lot to make that happen, right? With the upcoming multi-faith week and Shabbat ceremony, which Dad sent me. I love cheese. I absolutely love cheese. And my favorite type of cheese is probably Mason cheese, which is a real cheese from a lady here in Windsor. It's cheese with like vegetable ash that runs through it. The battle goes well, Dream Seeker. The battle goes well. I hope that you're doing well. Let me know when you're ready to drop off those paintings, and we'll start we'll auction them off for, the shrine. My fridge is empty right now. I'm the worst at like keeping food and storing food. Don't ask me about food preparation. I don't know the best way to store cheese. Talk to the grocery store. I mean, in the fridge, obviously. That's good. I mean, when you drop it off, maybe I haven't mailed it yet. Maybe I could just give you this coin in person instead of mailing it. Make sure you get it. Make sure you get it quickly. But it's up to you on whatever works. We can sort it out. Or I can still mail it to you. I just figured it might make more sense to actually give it to you. So, not that Canada Post hasn't been good to me. Everything I mail out eventually gets where it needs to go, but it can take a while. Because I've still got your item here for you whenever you're ready for it. So the best way. Barry Polanski, everybody loves cheese, and I have been accused of being a cheesy person. I've grown to accept that. I'm a cheesy guy. What can I say? We're going to just hang out for a little bit longer, wait to see who else joins. Again, the first hour, I don't have any specific topics. I just hang out and chat about whatever. Just wait to see who joins and what they want to talk about. Then I'm going to talk about this thing called Enshittification, which is a real thing. It's primarily discussed in the tech or technological sector. However, it is also applicable, I think, to a variety of different areas of life, including Freemasonry. So yeah, please take a moment, hit the like, hit subscribe. If I had to pick one of those two, it would be Swiss, although Cheddar Sharp is great as well. I do wonder in some ways if what we saw with the decline in civic institutions since the 1990s, and maybe even earlier, is in some ways an example of Enshittification. But yeah, I read that book, or the first bit of that book, while I was in Glenview. And Glenview Public Library, one of my favorite places, and I realized there's some very applicable Masonic elements to it. So I figured it's worth checking out, or worth discussing, I should say. But for the time being, let's wait to see who joins. And again, any thoughts on Freemasonry? Positive, negative, or neutral? Yes, cheese that's on sale. I'm with Dad. Cheese that's on sale is the best type of cheese. I mean, any food that's on sale is the best food. Any food that's free is the best food. Another reason to join Freemasonry is you get fed. Some of the best meals I've ever had have been in Masonic lodges. I've talked about this before, but the best meal I ever had was in a Masonic lodge in a Masonic event in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro. The food was so incredibly good. So I very much loved that. But yeah, I've got a funny, for a while I was going through, when I was the junior warden, I was using this lady, the cheese bar in Windsor, basically to cater a bunch of our after lodge meals. I loved the food. It was really expensive, but I loved the food. All these different, I love charcuterie. Like my last meal, one of the things I would have without question is a charcuterie board. With I just love meats and cheeses and pickles and olives and a charcuterie board and antipasto. That is all you need. Hello, raised eyebrow. All is going well. I hope you're doing well also. Thank you for being here. Please, again, take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. Well, you already hit the subscribe button. Hit that like button. Let me know how you're doing. Have you managed to dig out at all? Have you managed to dig out of your massive snowstorm in your neck of the woods? Because I know you got a pretty decent amount of snow. And of course, my question as well would be if you guys know of any brethren who are struggling with the snow, struggling with inclement weather. I would hope that, maybe some Masonic lodges are trying to assist, organizing check-ins, right? A lot of our brothers who are older, who are struggling, especially in the snow, they may need people to check on them, to make sure they're doing okay, to shovel their drive walks, to deliver some food, to get them to appointments, whatever it might be. I can only imagine if you do struggle with, let's say, mobility impairments or anything like that. I mean, it may be incredibly valuable and incredibly helpful to have, to have some help and to have some brothers checking in on you. I mean, you got a ton of snow. How much snow did you get altogether, raised eyebrow? What, 10, 15 centimeters, which would be like 7 or 8 inches. I mean, we're still digging out here in Canada, here in Windsor, I should say. It's not been terrible, but we're still dealing with really cold temperatures. And that seems to be slowing everything down in terms of actually like dealing with the sidewalks. But we'll figure it out. We'll get it. 14 inches. Jeez. That's like over 30 centimeters. Well, I hope everybody is doing all right. I can only imagine, especially if you are, again, isolated, older, have a hard time getting out, have a hard time shoveling, whatever it might be. I hope there are some Masonic brothers checking in on these guys, making sure they're okay. Maybe consider even doing some stop and some check-ins at, homeless shelters and delivering some food, volunteering. Do what you can as best you can. But the most important thing is keep yourself safe as well. Actually, I wonder, New York Freemasons Storm 2026. Oops. You did that wrong. Oh, so the Grand Lodge of the State of New York apparently posted a New Year's greeting and maintained regular operations, including mentoring, historical and philanthropic activities. Looks like they were able to keep going despite the storm. So there you go. 14 inches though, that's nuts. For now, we're just going to hang out. We're going to wait to see who joins. As always, please take a moment, hit the like and subscribe button. And any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, let me know. Again, we're going to start today's subject about 1 hour in. We're going to talk about Enshittification. So let's wait to see who joins. We're still dealing. I mean, I was in Chicago briefly. I left. It was relatively nice and mild. I came back. I came back through Detroit. It's, pretty significant snow. It felt like at least 10, 20, I think it was at least 10 centimeters, 10 to 15 centimeters. Freezing cold temperatures. It was brutally cold. I got back in at like 6 in the morning, and stepping off of that bus was not the best feeling in the world. That's for sure. It was quite cold, and my gloves were soaking wet because wheeling through Detroit or wheeling through Chicago. There was still a lot of slush on the ground, which meant my gloves got wet. They couldn't dry off, so that adds my thumbs were freezing. It was a pain in the butt. It was absolutely a pain in the butt. But hey, we made it. So we made it. We're back. We have a roof over our head. Not cold right now, so I really can't complain too much. I do hope everybody, though, is doing well. And again, we're just going to hang out, wait to see who jumps in the chat to say hello. And we will be, again, talking about this term Enshittification, which it's fun to say because you get to swear. And we'll talk about what it means and all that jazz very soon. But first, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and thank you all for being here. I banned a few annoying trolls. We're not going to get, or not banned, but put them on a pretty significant timeout. So we're not going to see them anytime soon. So that makes things more fun because they were a pain in the butt. But yeah, let's see who joins and what you want to talk about when it comes to Freemasonry. And again, 1 hour in is when we switch over to our specific topic, enshittification. But the first hour, I like to wait and see who joins and who wants to talk about, um, who wants to talk about Freemasonry. Dun, dun, dun. We're just waiting to see who joins, who jumps in the chat. This is interesting. I know that we got the email, but I know that Manitoba has something really cool happening on, if you're a Mason and you get the chance to check it out, on February 7th. My dad sent it to me, and thank you so much, Dad, for that. Let me just see if I can find it again. Now, where'd I put it? Here it is. Shabbat service. Thank you, Mr. Oh my gosh, Mr. Keeps, I'm so sorry about. Well, whenever somebody tells me they have like a surgery or anything like that, my view is always, I'm sorry that you had to go through it and had to have it, but at the same time, I'm glad that you're getting it because it probably means that there's something that needs to be dealt with and you are dealing with it and your doctor's dealing with it as well. So good on you, good for you. Okay, so yeah, I think anybody who's involved, anybody on the stream, if you are involved in, either tech services as a, either as a consumer, which we all are, we all have, some type of social media, Netflix, HBO, whatever it might be, or you're involved in it as more of the consumer end, not consumer end, but like the business end, selling ads, trying to use it to grow your business like I do on this end, or anywhere in between, and tech support, whatever it is, you may be aware of enshittification, right? Which, again, it's a term coined by Cory Doctorow. He's actually got a really cool Twitter account, by the way. It's the idea of social media platforms, and he uses it primarily in terms of social media. However, I think you can apply it to groups in general. I don't think it needs to be exclusively social media. I think it can be almost any product or services. But it's about the decline in quality of online platforms and how that decline takes place and why it takes place. But I think you can apply it to Freemasonry as well, or any civic group. Now, whether you think that there has been a decline in the quality is a whole different story. And I would argue in some ways there's been a decline in quality. In other ways, I think the quality has gone well. However, the pressures or quality is getting better. Again, it's certainly easier to communicate with membership in 2026 than it was 50 years ago through things like email, you're more able to communicate regularly. You're able to use technology to bring in, for example, guest speakers through video conferencing. However, there's downsides as well. But I think for me, what I found fascinating was not so much the idea of quality, but rather the pressures that face online platforms and how those pressures are very similar to the pressures faced by Freemasonry. Blacktop Freemasonry is a civic organization or a civil organization, community group that evolved from stonemasonry or stone Masonic guilds in the Middle Ages. Think of it as a social club that evolved from a trade union. It is the oldest social club or civic group in existence at over 300 years of age. The one service I hate with a passion is LinkedIn. I mean, I have a LinkedIn account. Current Comes Promotions, I have a LinkedIn account. I use it rarely. Um, so I really rarely check it, but I have found personally it's not one I use very often. Um, no worries, Smokey. Yes, 6:30 Eastern, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. I look forward to seeing you there. Should be a lot of fun. So 5:30 your time, 6:30 my time. Um, yes, my pops, me, everybody wishes you a speedy recovery. Again, it's one of those things where I wish, on the one hand, I'm sorry that you had surgery because medical procedures suck. But on the other hand, I am grateful that you're getting it because that means that whatever problems you're facing or problems you're dealing with, you are going to hopefully, um, recover. As I always say, listen to your doctor, do what your doctor tells you. Um, and another 4 minutes. Yeah, so out of curiosity, Mr. Keeps, when it came to enshittification as it relates to um, streaming services, Netflix and HBO, what are some examples of enshittification that you saw on those platforms? I don't use Netflix. I have Amazon Prime. I have Disney Plus. My favorite, as everybody knows, is Tubi, which is free. But as someone who hasn't used Netflix for a very long time, what are some of the examples of enshittification you saw on those platforms? I would be curious to know. Um, It does. Netflix has pretty much all the wrestling, right? It used to be, um, it used to be that, what's the word I'm trying to think of? It used to be that they had the WWE Network, and then it all moved over to Netflix. Again, as soon as it doesn't have Netflix, I can't speak to how good the wrestling content is, but I think it has everything. Like it has all the different pay-per-views going back forever. Oh, that sucks. I can imagine that though. Again, switching it from a license that you purchase once and own to a license that you have to pay for every month. I mean, I can imagine that as being the business model. And the problem is, and this is what they talk about in the book Enshittification, is the locked in quality of this, right? Meaning that if you need, let's say, a certain type of software to do your job, or a company needs a certain type of software for its products or services or operations, you create a dependence on that product, and then you start to jack up the price while at the same time reducing the quality or reducing the quality of the product. So you got them both ways, and you set the leaving or the switching costs incredibly high. So you make it so um, there's such an extravagant cost as it relates to switching software. Um, and it's so necessary for one's business that they end up basically being willing to be extorted and being willing to pay crazy amounts of money for this thing that they maybe don't need or they need, but never had to pay a yearly, never to pay a monthly subscription for, right? That's one of the things to talk about enshittification is this idea of binding a customer to a product to such an extent that it becomes incredibly costly for them to leave that product. And that's when you start to do things like jack up prices, lower the quality, switch from a single purchase to monthly subscription fee. So yeah, it's a challenge. How's it going, Spirit? Um, I hope you're doing well. Fraternal greetings to you as well, Courtney. On Netflix. Oh, and that sucks to me. Again, content is king, right? Like if you are in the streaming world and you're removing content, it seems like not a cool thing at all. Um, yes, Mr. Keeps. I don't know if they don't, he's not chatting, he's just typing, so it's fine. But tell the nurses to like and subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Um, Thank you. Hey, Brother Courtney. Hello, Gooey. Thank you for being here. I mean, honestly, I've talked about this on the stream before, and it's funny because it's not really Masonic, but I suppose everything I can connect to Freemasonry. I've been arguing for ever that, social media, oh, sorry, physical media is the way to go. Like, I miss VHS tapes, and they are making a comeback. I love DVDs, right? I'm of the age where I still remember what a big deal DVD loading screens were and DVD menus, and how much you loved getting the, like, special features, and how much fun that was. So yeah, I can absolutely imagine that would be really, really cool to have a Blu-ray collection again. It's funny, it feels like every type of media, like technology, has a shorter and shorter shelf life. So records or vinyl records were around for 50, 60, 70 years, something like that. Then it switched to cassette tapes, which had like I think a 30-year run, or 8 tracks, then cassette tapes, then CDs, then streaming, right? But it seemed like the amount of time CDs existed was so much less, or at least CDs were relevant to people's media, was so much less than the amount of time that vinyl records were. Um, oh, VHSs were incredible. I loved rental stores so much. Spirit of Justice. I mean, I posted about this on social media. I said somebody posted this about video rental, and I applied it to Freemasonry, right? What they said about video rental, though, is they said Netflix is convenient, but going to Blockbuster was an actual experience. And it was. I mean, in a lot of ways, it was a community experience. It was one of the first examples, I think, of a national identity forming. I know it sounds strange to say that, but throughout history, people like to talk about the American identity, the Canadian identity, the British identity. That was always, in my opinion, more in theory than in practice. In practice, you didn't have a national identity. You had small towns and cities, each with their own identity. Like you identified as somebody from Winnipeg, somebody from Toronto, somebody from, small town Manitoba. Like your identity was tied in with the small town in which you live, because every town, every city had its own unique businesses and experiences. You didn't have chain stores, so you had, Gary's restaurant, which had its own specials and its own whatever it is, right? Or you had, I remember when I was really young, we didn't have Blockbuster. We had a local video store in a shopping plaza, which was owned by, I can't remember his name or anything, but some old dude who sat behind the counter, right? And it was very unique. It looked unique. It looked different than any other video store. It was the character of the owner of it, right? Every store was unique. It was all a bunch of mom and pop shops. Each one had its own identity and contributed to the identity of the town or community. So you may say you're Canadian, but in terms of your identity, you more or less connected and had a culture associated with your small town. Once you start to develop chain restaurants and video stores, I think that's when you start to really develop national identities, because if I were to say I'm going to John's video rental store in Winnipeg, again, it looked unique, it was different. But if I said I'm going to Blockbuster, everybody across Canada and North America understood what that meant. They knew, because every video store is meant to look the same, right? Every Blockbuster was designed in the same way with the same color scheme, the same layout. And so suddenly it's like everybody knows what it means to go to Blockbuster. Everybody knows how it looks. Everybody knows what that experience is. Everybody knows what a McDonald's looks like and what a McDonald's tastes like, or what a Burger King, or what Walmart. And suddenly you develop these national identities based on where you would go and what you were doing. But that was never the norm, right? I think we're probably going back to a time when if we do start to redevelop community identities, it's going to switch and be back to more local businesses and local unique. Like I'm not a huge fan of him. This is not by any means meant as a endorsement of a lot of what he says. I will say though, Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire, he did say something that stuck with me. He pointed out this idea of losing the national identity. He seemed to imply that the national identity always existed. In my opinion, it didn't until the 80s and 90s when you had started to develop these chains, all of which, again, it was suddenly you had common experiences. You had everybody knew what it was like to go to the mall. Everybody knew what it was like to go to the food court. Everybody knew what it was like to go to the Cineplex because there was a few different corporations. Everybody knew what a Blockbuster looked like, what a family video looked like. Everybody knew what these things were and what it meant to go to them. And you developed a culture around that, which I think was a good thing. It was an experience. I remember going to video stores with my friends, with my family. You saw other people there that you knew. You saw other friends there. You all talked about what you were getting. You could get a pizza at the same time. I don't know, I'm kind of going on a tangent a little bit. But my point is, I think that identity in terms of what it meant to be, let's say, a teenager in Canada in the 1990s and 2000s, when I was a teenager, so much of that was shaped by the common experiences around things like video rental and going to the mall and whatever else it was. Now that we're losing all of these video stores and chain stores and malls and everything is going online shopping, online video streaming services, online communication, we're losing that identity once again. That's the other thing where I disagree with Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh, I think, tends to focus everything on so much of it on the idea of race and ethnicity and common language. I don't think that's what creates common experiences. I think that's a misnomer. What actually creates a common identity is not race, religion, creed, language. It's common experiences. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what language you speak. If you were a teenager in the 90s and you were going to Blockbuster and I was going to Blockbuster, we had a common experience. In the same way, I think Freemasonry kind of teaches us that as well. One of the things that shaped identity, at least within a local town or community, but also nationally, was being a Freemason. When somebody tells me they're going to a Masonic lodge, I know what that means. I know what that experience means. It doesn't matter what race they are, what age they are, what religion they are, what their politics are. It's the common experiences that matter. And as everything becomes so hyper online and hyper individualized and hyper digitized, we've lost those actual experiences. We've traded experience for convenience. The problem is it's very hard to build any type of identity on a community or national level if your focus is on convenience and not experience. If that made any sense. It might not have, but that's my best guess. Thank you, Courtney. That's incredibly kind for you. Believe it or not, the one business in my old neighborhood is I wouldn't doubt it, Mr. Keeps. I wouldn't doubt it at all because again, wherever your old neighborhood is, how much of the businesses that people used to have you had to go to it, you had to walk to it or bike to it or drive to it. pick up the whatever it is you wanted and then go back home. Um, how much of that now can be done online? And again, you're losing that shared experience. Um, I mean, I don't like him at all, but give the devil his due. He was right about this, which is, again, losing, he pointed out, with the development of the iPhone, one thing he pointed out, and I thought it was fascinating, is the idea of being rich and famous, or being famous and what that means, right? There was a time when if you were famous, it meant everybody knew you. They might not know or be familiar with your work or be familiar with your whatever your output is, but everybody knew who you were. Like internet famous wasn't a thing. Like, my when I was growing up, the big artists and the big singers of the time, I'm sure my parents and my friends' parents weren't listening to them, weren't enjoying them, but they knew who they were. They recognized the name. I mean, right now, you can have somebody on YouTube with 10 million subscribers, 10 million fans, billions of views, billions of downloads, and that person is known exclusively to the fans. No one outside of that bubble knows who they are, which again is an example of a fraying national identity. There's no shared culture, because there's no shared experiences. Again, to me, and this is where I disagree with Matt, and this is Matt Walsh, and this is why I think Freemasonry is so valuable. The solution is not to rely on a single, to focus on ethnicity, to focus on language or race or immigration status or whatever it is. What you need to focus on is creating shared experiences and civic engagement once again. Going to Blockbuster Video was a type of civic engagement. You were engaged with your community because it was an experience. Again, you saw your friends, you saw the people who worked there, you picked up your snacks, you contributed to the local economy. Not Netflix's bottom line, but at least the money went to that store to hire more people. In 2026, we are losing those shared experiences. And if we keep losing them, we lose any type of identity. And without a shared identity, it's very hard to foster things like brotherly love. Freemasonry has a worldwide identity. Well, Freemasonry does, and I think worldwide, I think every type of identity is valuable. I think though community, so I have a lot of different types of identities wrapped up within Freemasonry, right? Um, I have my lodge identity. So when I say I'm a member of Windsor Lodge 403 or Border Cities Lodge 554. That's a unique Masonic identity. There are unique things about that lodge, the membership of that lodge, when it meets, where it meets. That creates a local identity. I feel very close to my brothers in those lodges. Then I have the, jurisdictional identity. I'm a member of the Grand Lodge in Ontario. So there are certain unique rules about Ontario Freemasonry, like we have a dress code, suit and tie. That forms a type of identity within my jurisdiction. Then I have my worldwide Masonic identity, where I love all my brothers. Courtney, my dad, you guys are different jurisdictions. You live far away from me, yet you're still my brothers, and I still consider you, part of my brotherly love family. And I think it's the same thing with identity in a global perspective, right? I'm proud to be in Windsor. I love my community. I love my town. I think it's the greatest city in the world. But then, of course, I love my country. I think it's the greatest country in the world. And then I love everybody in the world. And I want to try to do what's best for all of them as best I can and recognize at the end of the day, to borrow a Masonic idea, we're all brothers of the dust. I would hope, Mr. Keeps, that my dad is right and everybody knows who the Beatles are. If anybody doesn't, I'd be very sad. It would be like that movie Yesterday, which is a good movie, by the way, but I can make a fortune doing Beatles songs again. we're going to give it another 15 minutes, and we're going to talk about Enshittification and its connection to Freemasonry, which is very interesting, I will say. Again, within Freemasonry, one of the things that you need to keep in mind and remember is we should always be, as much as possible, trying our best to find resources, information, knowledge from a variety of different sources. I think sometimes one of the biggest mistakes we make in Freemasonry is we focus too much. We focus way too much on, what are Masons saying? What are the Masons talking about? What do the Masons think? You can derive a great deal of insight and wisdom and perspective from non-Masonic sources, because so many different things apply to Freemasonry, even if they're not Masonic directly. Again, Enshittification. I don't know if Cory Doctorow is himself a Freemason. I don't think he is. I've not seen any evidence that he is. But again, it's not to say that just because he's not a Freemason and just because he's writing about technology, that doesn't mean there's not significant value in his in his research that can be applied to Freemasonry. America, song called, I know the group America. I can't think of the song called Venture Highway. Hello, Mr. Young Thug. Thank you for being here. We have many Christian Freemasons, all of whom I'm sure would agree with you. I hope that you will take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button, by the way. Thank you for being here. Have an excellent, excellent day. And let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry, Mr. Young Thug. Positive, negative, or neutral. I would love to hear it. Again, I could be, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I've been a Freemason for 20 years, just about. Joined in 2007. I have many different thoughts on Freemasonry based on my experiences within Freemasonry, my travels around the world. I don't always know everything, but I can at least give you my insights based on my experiences therein. Well, including you, I think, but, there's no accounting for taste. I wanted long hair, but Mom wouldn't let me get it because she said it would look ugly. So what can you do? Can't win it all. Can't win them all. We're going to give it a bit more time. And then once again, we're going to talk about Enshittification. Let me know if what I said made sense about the idea of shared experiences. I'm working on knowing everything. I mean, I know a lot of things, Rondo. I don't know everything, but I know a lot of things. At least I hope I know a lot of things. Again, I get plenty of stuff wrong. That's the fun thing about life, is there's always more to learn. One thing I always point out is anybody who says they know everything about Freemasonry, don't listen to them, because I don't know everything about Freemasonry. I've never met anybody who knows everything about Freemasonry. Because you're weird, Big C431. And at a certain point, the weirdness becomes uninteresting. Well, Eric, I will let you know. At least I will give you the reason why I why I choose to maintain the privacy of the rituals. There's three reasons. I've given these examples before. First is the family recipe analogy. There's two ways to create bonds of brotherhood. I've talked about this just a little while ago, or to create bonds in general, right? The first is through shared experiences. The second is through shared knowledge. Shared experiences or shared knowledge creates bonds of brotherhood, family, creates bonds of brotherly love, however those may be expressed. If you start to share that knowledge and those experiences outside of the group, then it lessens the bond. So for example, I've given this example before. Let's say you have a family recipe, and that's a secret recipe that's exclusive to your family. That is an example of shared information that helps maintain the bonds between past, present, and future generations of the family. If we share it out, if the family shares it on the internet or shares it with people outside of the family, then those bonds are lessened, right? I never met my grandfather. He was a Mason though, and when I'm involved in Freemasonry, I feel closer to him. And part of that is because both my grandfather and I shared or share the same knowledge. And even though he passed away, I still have that connection to him that I really appreciate. Freemasonry is the same thing. Again, it's shared knowledge creating bonds of brotherhood. The second reason is because not every ritual is the same, despite what people think. Ritual across the United States is different. Ritual in Canada is different. If I start to share the quote unquote private or secret elements of Freemasonry and somebody joins, they may be expecting things that don't happen. They're not going to be present for the degree. They're going to be focusing on what they think should happen, which does a disservice. And the third is if they happen to be joining the same jurisdiction as me, then it's like I've given them spoilers. And spoilers are, you don't want to ruin anything for them. You want them to experience it. Part of joining Freemasonry is there is a leap of faith element involved in it. I don't want to take that away necessarily. Funk Congress, thank you for being here. Hey, I'll take it. Whether I'm the one Freemason or a million, I'm just happy to be known by you. So thank you for being here. Eduardo, whether I'm Jewish or not should not make a difference. Freemason does not discriminate based on one's religion. So, there you go. But thank you everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. As always, take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to give it a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to start talking again about Enshittification. No, the stream hasn't ended. The stream is still here. We're not ending the stream anytime soon. Again, these streams usually go for a couple hours. They can sometimes go longer, sometimes go shorter. It just depends. Oh, be careful, Dad. Cutting turnip is impossible. Cutting turnip is the biggest pain in the butt. Don't do that. Get somebody else to cut your turnip. Oh, I hate cutting turnip. I wish you best of luck, though. I wish you best of luck in your cutting turnip efforts. Thank you. I like this shirt as well, so it's a good shirt. I support that. I mean, the degrees are just one. I mean, I don't know if I'd say layer per se. I mean, that's not a bad way to look at it. I would say it's one element of Freemasonry. It's not the exclusive element. There's many different elements of Freemasonry, right? And so you need to be really careful. A lot of people will put so much emphasis on the degree work, they'll forget about all the other aspects of Freemasonry. It's one aspect of many. Some do, some don't, JG. It really depends on what the Mason wants. Whether he wants the symbol on his gravestone. I've known many Masons who have it. I've known many Masons who don't. But that is why it's important. I've talked about this before. That is why it's incredibly important that the Mason talks with his family about what his wishes are and includes those things in his will in written format. So if, for example, a Mason wants to have the Masonic symbol on his gravestone and wants to have a Masonic funeral service, he should let his family know. And he should also, let his family know, and he should also put it in his will in written form, or on his, maybe he's getting cremated, but he's going to be, his ashes will be stored somewhere, right? It's important to let them know in advance. So I know some have and some haven't. My hope is any Masons who don't have the Masonic symbol on the gravestone, it's because they specifically said they didn't want to have it, as opposed to forcing the family to guess after the fact. I can't imagine it would be like an expensive thing, because I don't think it'd be that expensive to add. I mean, I'm sure just it's very expensive in general, funerals, but I can't imagine it'd be that expensive to add the symbol to the gravestone. But tell your family what you want. That's the most important thing. Communicate. Not just about your like what you want in your gravestone, but all the different things that will happen when you could potentially pass away. What you want to happen to your Masonic items, your Masonic regalia, your Masonic jewels. Like all of that stuff is so incredibly important and matters so much. So I can't tell you how many times I've heard of Masonic items being lost and then rediscovered, lost and then found in who knows where. So yeah, I do too. It's a good service. It's a kind service. It's a way to say, like, it's an act of kindness on the part of both the Masons to perform the service, as well as the family who requests it and allows us to do it. It's also a way to say thank you to both the brother. We say goodbye to him and thank you for spending time with him, as well as a way to say thank you to the family, right? For every every hour that brother spent in a Masonic meeting or with a Masonic lodge, it's one less hour that he could spend with, it's one less hour that he could spend with his family, with his wife, with his kids, with his grandkids, whatever it might be. And so we have a responsibility, I think, to, if we can, and if the family wants it, to say thank you for allowing us to be there for him, or allowing him to be there for us, I should say. Especially when he's dead, you kind of remember how little time we actually have on this planet, and therefore it's important to say thank you, A, to the brother for spending time with us, and B, to the family for allowing him to spend time with us. So yeah, that is my humble opinion on that. No, I mean, we communicate just by communication, just by talking to people. We don't communicate by quote unquote, I don't know why I would send, if I wanted to send a message globally, like we're having this big event, please come to it, we would just put a Facebook post or something like that. I don't think we would, do it any other way. So it'd be hard to it would be really hard to communicate globally via symbolism. We would just do a Facebook post and send it to, public. Hello, Paul Lemons. Thank you for being here. Once again, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having an excellent day. Thank you so much for being here. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button, and thank you for joining. Well, I mean, if we want to send messages just for the brothers, again, like on a global scale, it'd be really hard because, again, Freemasonry is not a global. There's Freemasonry around the world, but Freemasonry is decentralized. There's not a specific, global entity. There are Facebook pages and stuff that are meant for Masons in general, but there's not like a single governing body that communicates with Freemasons globally. So if you're having an event that's open to Masons around the world, like let's say in the Philippines, they're doing the annual communication, what you would do is you create the event, create a web page for it, share it with your brothers, and then share it on a variety of of social media platforms and sites. And then if you want to make it exclusive for Masons to actually attend, you just create a registration page where before you're able to purchase a ticket for the event or sign up for the event, you have to demonstrate electronically proof of membership, usually by sending a dues card to them. I am doing well. No, user, that's weird. You're a weird person. Freemasonry is not a religion, nor does it require that. You're a very strange person, user. I'm doing worship. I'm doing very well. Burza Manlar, I hope you're doing well also. Thank you for being here. Um, I mean, several of the founders were Freemasons. Again, the term many, it's very general, right? How many is many? 13, if I recall correctly, 13 of the founding fathers, or sorry, 9 to 11 of the founding fathers of Freemasons, and 13 of the 39 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons. So you can, whether that's a lot or many is kind of each individual will decide. But Freemasonry definitely influenced the thinking of a lot of, important figures within American history, as well as within the history of the world. It does happen. Unfortunately, the idea of Masonic rituals going around the internet, it does happen. We try, or, again, it just is what it is. I don't get too worried about it because there's nothing you can do. People are going to do what they're going to do. All we can do as Freemasons is, try to be on an individual level as dedicated to our ritual and maintaining the bonds of brotherhood through shared knowledge as we can. Well, but Freemasons don't control the world, Strategy Master. So whatever Freemasonry says, or whatever it is, if people say that Freemasonry controls the world, then people can say whatever they want, but they're wrong. Freemasonry is not a global enterprise. Freemasonry is decentralized, right? So you need to remember that there is no single governing body within Freemasonry. We have our own quote-unquote modes of recognition, where if I meet a brother, there are ways I can try to confirm if he's a Freemason. Primarily, the way is I will ask him, "Are you a Freemason?" and ask to see a dues card. Honestly, I'm sure, Courtney, that somewhere they have a Masonic bookmark, but I've never seen one, and that would be a really cool merch idea. You're absolutely right. It would probably be worth me checking that out, seeing if I could find one. Thank you for the idea. I think it's a great one. I will look into it for sure. Because, yeah, I think that would be awesome to see. I am always looking for new merchandise ideas, especially around the holiday season when I'm sending out to all my Patreon subscribers, paid Patreon members, sending them special correspondence and special holiday gifts. So, yeah, it would be worth looking into that for sure. We should carry our dues cards at all time, Burza Manalar. Not everybody does, unfortunately, but we should be. I always say if I'm leaving my house, the first thing I check is to make sure I have my dues cards. And the second thing I do is make sure I have my credit cards. But dues cards first. Well, if I gave a knowledge that was shared, it wouldn't be shared knowledge within Freemasonry. It wouldn't be private. For that, you got to learn. Or for that, you got to join, excuse me. But basically, it's what's called modes of recognition. All right, user, you're being weird again. I think I'm going to have to put you in timeout. Too tired to deal with nonsense. Suli, for that, you got to join Freemasonry. Again, shared, the ways to create bonds of brothers through shared experiences. If I start to share them, or shared knowledge and shared experiences, if I start to share them with non-Masons, then it's like the family recipe, right? You can ask me, for example, for my grandma's recipe for baking cookies, But if that's a family recipe, then I'm going to keep it in the family. Yeah, I mean recognition, right? Ways to recognize another Mason. But again, the best way to recognize another Mason is to just ask them, "Are you a Mason?" And then ask them for a dues card. That's the best way to do it. Um, I'm just trying to get what I wrote about Enshittification. McCoy Publishing and Masonic Supply Company. I will check that out for sure. I mean, it's no question or no doubt to me at all that somebody would have thought of creating a Masonic bookmark, because there's so many Masonic books out there. Then of course they're going to create Masonic bookmarks. But yeah. Well, I mean, the crossed keys is a symbol that very often is meant to represent a treasurer. Think about it in terms of like keys to a vault, keys to a safe. Um, but yeah, that's a good idea, Courtney. And maybe I could create some bookmarks that are specifically for square and compass promotions as well. Well, Jim Rat, I'm no fan of Donald Trump, but that's fine if you are. Freemasonry is not political. We have many different political beliefs within a Masonic lodge. Freemasonry does not discriminate based on one's politics. Okay. So as you may know, I was recently in Glenview, Illinois. I was at the library, one of my favorite places in the world, and as part of being in the library, I found the book titled Enshittification: Why Everything Suddenly Got Worse and What to Do About It, a 2025 book written by author and tech activist Cory Doctorow. I'm not sure if Cory Doctorow is himself a Freemason. I don't believe he is. I could be wrong. I've never seen any evidence one way or the other. But he was writing primarily about tech platforms, primarily social media platforms, whether they be whether they be social media or Google or search engines, whatever it might be, and basically the process by which they seem to continually get worse, or decline in quality. However, I thought there were some very valuable insights in that book that could be applied to Freemasonry and maybe civic institutions in general. And what particularly I found fascinating was when he talked about three concepts that exist within economics and exist within the tech world. Sorry, just reading. So there's definitely nobody who's 105th degree Mason. Whoever is claiming to be 105th degree Mason is full of baloney and full of BS. I mean, I don't think being a president, being a president and a Freemason creates a conflict. No different than, I mean, you could be a member of the motorist club. You could be a member of a knitting club or a football team and be the president of the United States, right? We are all part of different groups and organizations within our lives. What's to stop a president, for example, from prioritizing his family's interests over the nation's, right? What you need to do is you need to have strong conflict of interest laws, not specifically for Freemasonry, but for any potential conflict of interest, business dealings, whatever it might be, because there's always going to be the risk of conflict of interest, whether it be, a brother is a Freemason or a brother is an elk or a brother is a member of a religious faith. What's to stop him from prioritizing that religious faith over others, right? You have to just have generally strong conflict of interest laws, as well as a strong media that, can call things out. So if, for example, a president were to start favoring Freemasons over other groups, which he shouldn't, you need to have a media that has the strength to and the ability to call that out and say, this is, to call out and say what's happening, as it should be. I mean, I'm a Freemason, but I would never want, for example, to receive any type of special privileges just because the president or prime minister happened to be a Freemason. I would love to see Freemasonry encouraged because I think it's good for society, but I think that's also true in Knights of Columbus, Elks, Moose. I think civic institutions in general make society better and make society stronger. I don't see why he would do that, strategy master. I mean, again, under that theory, what's to stop a president from prioritizing his family over the average citizen, like his blood family, or his church congregation over the nation, right? That's just silly. Freemasons are capable of having brotherly love, but also doing their job professionally. Um, so that's very silly. Nobody has Masonic curses. Masonic curses don't exist. I don't believe in curses at all. I don't believe in the supernatural. So it's more than likely, in my opinion, mental illness. I hope they find somebody to talk to about what they're feeling, because that is almost certainly mental illness of some sort. So going back to Enshittification, again, I thought that the book had three particular terms or ideas that are prevalent in the economy as well as in tech space that apply to Freemasonry. The first is network effects, particularly high network effects. The second is the collective action problem. And the third is switching costs, right? So Freemasonry, if you consider it a product, enjoys high network effects. Network effects refers to a product or service that gets more valuable as it attracts more users. Now, again, this is just for the record, my opinions and my thoughts on Freemasonry. There are some who would disagree with me on this, and that's fine. I'm going to give you my opinion, though. The value of Freemasonry increases as it attracts more members and more active members. I just don't see how you can get around that. Going to a lodge meeting with 7 or 8 people versus going to a lodge meeting that has 30 or 40 people in attendance, they are completely different feelings. They are completely different in terms of how they feel, what it means, how much you enjoy being there. It's a completely different feeling, right? Most people, at least in my experience, are attracted to and join Freemasonry because they know at least one person who is a Freemason, and they usually join the same Masonic lodge as a Freemason they know. The value they find within Freemasonry is based, at least at the start of their Masonic journey, on the number of members or users known to them. To grow the membership and thereby the network effect within Freemasonry, Freemasonry must solve the collective action problem. So if we need to get more people to join, we need to consider the collective action problem, the incredibly difficult problem of convincing people to take a certain action or actions, such as joining a Masonic lodge, or in the case of membership, getting them to attend Masonic meetings or events. However, a high network effect is not enough to maintain Masonic lodges or Freemasonry. The bigger question is what, if any, are the switching costs associated with actively or passively moving away from Freemasonry. Switching costs represents any cost associated with moving away from a product or service. A switching cost in actively or passively moving away from Freemasonry, a passive example of moving away from Freemasonry might be you just stop attending meetings. You don't tell anybody you plan to stop attending meetings. You don't, demit from the lodge. Rather, what you do is you just stop showing up. That's an example of passively moving away from Freemasonry. Actively moving away from Freemasonry might be writing a letter to the lodge saying you are going to be demitting from Freemasonry. Right? Right. So a switching cost it's not necessarily a financial cost, but a switching cost to moving away from Freemasonry would be you see your brothers significantly less, right? So how, if you see your Masonic brothers once a month, you stop attending lodge, you no longer see them. That is a switching cost. Now, depending on how much you enjoy spending time with the brothers or how many of them you have close relationships with, will depend on how high or how low that cost is, or how many people are at the lodge. If you're going to a lodge and on average it's 7 guys, none of whom you know that well or see regularly, the switching cost of not attending meetings is going to be low. If you're going to a lodge and there's regularly 30 or 40 guys there and you know a lot of them and you enjoy their company, then the switching cost is going to be much higher, right? The more relevant Freemasonry is to its membership, the higher the switching costs will be. Relevance equals relationship. I've talked about that in the past. The more relevant Freemasonry is to its membership, the higher the switching costs will be. What are the costs associated, or how relevant is Freemasonry to an average person, right? What do they go for? What do they get from it? What are the costs associated with leaving, right? I talked in the past about, Freemasonry is not a cult, and it's not. People are free to come and go as they please and to stay, to leave. However, I do think in some ways we are not doing enough to make the leaving of a Masonic lodge expensive. And what I mean by that is it's not expensive in terms of finances, but expensive in terms of just the generalized costs, the things you miss out on, the things you lose by leaving. Now, one of those could be considered your dues, yeah, and financial. For example, if your Masonic dues are $500 per year, or let's say even $1,000 per year, that's very expensive. However, if you pay that, then moving away from Freemasonry and not attending lodge regularly, that's a switching cost in that you've basically lost that $1,000 dues, right? That $1,000 is basically gone and you're getting no value from it. Whereas if your average dues are $25 per year, then if you stop attending lodge, are you really going to care about missing that $25? It's the Netflix thing, right? If Netflix is expensive enough and you pay for it, are you going to start to feel like, or even you pay for it over, let's say, a whole year, are you going to start to feel like I have to stay and watch Netflix? It costs so much money. The switching cost of going from Netflix to Tubi, which Tubi is free, is if you've already paid for Netflix, you feel like you've invested into it. And the cost of moving to a different platform is you no longer have access to that content, or you're not taking advantage of watching the content for which you've paid, right? So again, is the fact that we make Freemasonry very often inexpensive from a dues perspective, is the consequence of that, that the switching cost of Freemasonry is too low. If we are not trying to require attendance and relying on people to show up of their own accord, and we're getting 7 or 8 members per meeting, there's a switching cost issue there as well. Because again, if you're joining Freemasonry because you want to see people and hang out with people, especially people you know, and there's very few people showing up to lodge regularly, do you feel like there's a switching cost to leaving Freemasonry? You need to keep that in mind as well, right? What are some other switching costs? What services do Freemasons provide to their membership? Whether it be, and there's a variety of examples of this. It could be scholarship opportunities. It could be a social safety net in terms of benevolence. If you find yourself challenged with, for example, keeping yourself in your home, there's a million different things it could be. So I think we need to keep that in mind as well. I think in some ways we have set the switching costs of Freemasonry too low, either by keeping our dues too low, or by not trying to enforce attendance. The other issue is, we think about this from the technological perspective. In the 50s, 40s, 30s, certainly in the 20s, when Freemasonry was going through these boom periods and you had a lot of people joining, there was basically one way to keep in touch with your Masonic brethren. That was to show up to the Masonic Lodge, right? You couldn't call them on the phone. Most people didn't have phones. You couldn't check their Facebook profile to see what's happening with them. You couldn't send them a text message. You couldn't send them an email. You could send them a letter, but that might be expensive, and who knows how long it would take to get there. So you had to, if you wanted to keep in touch with your Masonic brethren and know what they were doing, you had to attend Masonic lodges and Masonic events. Um, and so the switching cost in the 1920s of leaving a Masonic lodge or not attending was much more significant because you were much less likely to be able to maintain contact with your brothers. In 2026, it's very much the opposite. Even without attending lodge and face-to-face communication, it's very likely you can still maintain contact with your brothers through Facebook, through telephone, through texting, through whatever else it might be. And as a consequence of that, the switching cost has reduced, right? You can't rely on people coming to a Masonic lodge exclusively to maintain contact with their brethren. They may very well have that brethren already connected or already be connected to them through WhatsApp. And in that case, you're asking, what is the switching cost between face-to-face communication and virtual communication? What is being lost by switching from in-person communication to virtual communication? And for a lot of people, the experience of in-person communication is not as valuable based on the way they're, based on how they're voting with their feet. They would rather, the cost of the convenience of virtual communication is worth the switching cost of moving away from face-to-face communication. This goes back to what I was talking about with even video rental stores like Blockbuster, right? There is a switching cost in moving from in-person video rental to virtual Netflix or streaming services, right? But there's also a trade-off. Netflix is more convenient, but you lose the experience of going to a video store with your friends or family or whatever it is. Most people, however, for better or worse, have decided that's a cost they're willing to pay. They're willing to pay the cost of losing the experience for the benefit of convenience. How can we in Freemasonry push back against this desire for convenience amongst the typical member and the typical citizen and the typical member of a community? So Masonic curses do not exist because curses do not exist. If we'd had curses, maybe we could keep people in lodge that way, right? So I think my question is, I'm going to put this in the chat, and again, this becomes one of those things where, look, it's definitely possible to abuse the idea of switching costs. I don't want to claim like it's all like switching costs are just this wonderful good thing. For example, we talked about this above with Mr. Keeps. If you produce some type of software licensing program or some type of software program that is necessary for people to do their job, for safety, for whatever it is, one of the dangers, especially if you have very weak antitrust laws, is you can just go, okay, we know people need this product. We know people need this service in order to work, in order for security or cyber safety, whatever it might be, in order for their emails to work. So we will get them, to need it. We'll get them hooked on it, we will make it necessary for their business. And then once it's necessary for their business, we will create incredibly high switching costs, meaning we'll make it so, for example, we'll lobby for legislation that basically says this type of service requires this type of software and this type of software exclusively. That software is created by one company. Now that the company has created this, they can jack up the prices because the switching costs of going to a different service are so high, people are being forced to pay exorbitant amounts of money because they have no choice. I mean, it's the example of going from a one-time payment to purchase a service or software to monthly subscriptions. The reason that a company can go from saying, okay, you buy this once and you own it for life, to we're going to charge you a monthly fee, a monthly subscription to use this service, is because they know that that service and that product is necessary and the company can't live without it, or the individual can't live without it. Once they've got you, they can continue to make the product worse while charging more for it. That's an example of using switching costs in a negative way, right? That's the example of using switching costs to basically trap people into your product, into your service, into your community, whatever it might be. Another example is technology, like phones, right? If you create your phone in such a way that no one can use it but you, or sorry, like no other software can use it. Like, let's say you keep all of your pictures on your phone and they set it up in such a way that if you switch phones or switch companies, you cannot move your data or your pictures from one phone to another. You can only move your pictures onto, for example, a phone produced by the same company. They've now created a switching cost. Whereas if you decide you're going to switch from phone company A to phone company B, well, you've lost all your pictures, right? Or you can't transfer these pictures to a new phone. Or you can't use, even it's something as little and as small as creating it where you create a new phone that can't use an old charger. You've basically created a switching cost where now you're being forced to purchase both the phone and the charger, because what are you going to do, right? And I'm not suggesting that Freemasonry should, for example, I'm not suggesting, for example, that Freemasonry should engage in those practices. Freemasonry is not a cult. People should be free to join and then leave and then walk away as they please. And they should never be made to feel like there's a cost to leaving Freemasonry or walking away, like a cost that's being pushed upon them or being used punitively to make them stay. However, it is absolutely possible as well to create switching costs. And when I say switching costs, I just mean, it's an economic term, strategy master. A switching cost just mean the cost of moving away from something. It's not an exclusive term to Freemasonry. It could mean anything. It could mean switching from an Apple phone to a Samsung phone, or from an iPhone to an Android. It could mean switching from Twitter or X to Blue Sky. It could mean switching from playing football to playing soccer. It's just when you choose to switch one activity for another. In Freemasonry, the switching cost could mean switching from attending meetings regularly to not attending meetings, from being a Freemason to not being a Freemason, right? All of these are types of switching costs. Opportunity cost is another term. I mean, you could, but again, what's to stop the cell phone company from making it difficult? Or, you can switch them to a computer, but they lose resolution, right? Whatever it might be. And maybe you don't want to have the pictures on your computer. You want to have them on your phone for whatever reason. So I don't think it should ever be punitive. Like, one thing I would never say, I don't think Freemasonry should ever do, is say, if you want to leave Freemasonry, you have to pay a penalty of $500. Because that's something businesses do, right? Like Adobe, for example, Acrobat, one thing they do is if you have a subscription to their services and you want to end the subscription early, they charge you a fee of like $70, $80, basically just to leave the service, right? That's an example of a switching cost that they created, thereby forcing you to, encouraging you to, not encouraging you, basically trapping you in their service by charging you a penalty for leaving or for ending your subscription early. I would never say that Freemasons should do that. if someone wants to leave Freemasonry, there should be no penalties, financial or otherwise, for doing so, and there's not, and there never should be. I would, probably leave Freemason myself if there was. However, that's not to say that, there's, for lack of a better term, passive switching costs, which means they're not costs that are created or enforced, but rather costs that derive naturally from the quality of the product, right? So, for example, let's use football as an example. If you're part of a football team and you love being on the team and you enjoy it and you love your teammates and you have a great time, then you've naturally, the coach and the players and everybody involved has naturally created a switching cost. By creating a fun, enjoyable atmosphere, if a person is thinking of not going to a practice, not going to a game, whatever it might be, they are thinking about the switching costs or opportunity costs associated with, but I enjoy it. It's fun. I like seeing the guys, right? If you set so again, within Freemasonry, if you're creating fun, enjoyable events, for example, if you're making sure that there's good food before or after a lodge, if you're advertising what the food is going to be, you've now created a switching cost, right? The cost of switching from going to that Masonic meeting to not going to that Masonic meeting is you lose out on the fun, you lose out on the fellowship, and you lose out on the food and the refreshment after lodge. If you set your Masonic dues high enough, right, maybe you set them to $500 per year, you've now created a stronger switching cost to a brother leaving. Because let's say a brother decides he's going to, so let's say you have 10 meetings in a year and you set your dues at $500 per year. That works out to $50 a meeting, right? So now every time a brother decides to miss a lodge meeting, there's a switching cost associated in missing that. You can think about it as he's losing $50, right? He spent $500 to be a Freemason for that year. He's missing one meeting. That's $50 down the drain. He could look at it in that sense. Again, it's a balance because I couldn't afford to pay $500 per year, especially because I'm a member of 5 Masonic lodges. So if each lodge was $500 per year, that'd be $2,500. There's no way I could afford that. But what I would say again, and the point I'm trying to make is we need to think about, is it too inexpensive to passively or actively move away from Freemasonry? And what can we do as Masons to create higher switching costs? Are we creating enjoyable Masonic experiences? Are they fun? Are we emphasizing the value of face-to-face communication, right? Are we pointing out, it may not seem to you like there's a switching cost to not meeting your brothers face-to-face, but interacting with them virtually through social media. You may be willing to say it's more convenient for me to visit with them virtually, but what is the experience that you're missing out on by actually meeting with them face to face? Nathan, when I talk about dues, I'm talking about financial, right? It's yearly dues that cover the cost of running the lodge. They can be as little as $25 a year. They can be as much as, the most expensive dues I pay are $250, but I know there are some lodges that are higher. It's how brethren, it's a self-funded organization, right? We cover the cost of our whatever our expenses are. It could be expenses related to the buildings. It could be expenses related to refreshments, food and drink, events, whatever else it might be, through dues. Somebody mentioned there, Strategy Master, if they leave and start to reveal all the secrets, then so be it. Nothing that can be done about it. If they start to leave and they reveal all the secrets, then so be it. There's nothing we can do. They're free to do as they please. Part of part of Freemasonry, I've talked about this a bunch of times in the past. Part of being a Freemason is absolutely there is a it's twofold, right? There is absolutely a leap of faith that the applicant is taking, choosing to join the Masonic Lodge. There's also a leap of faith that the Masonic Lodge is taking, choosing to allow another member. And you have to, at the end of the day, recognize and understand that there's only so much that can be done. It's impossible to know everything about a brother, everything about what a man will do, how he will change over time. And he may get to a point where he decides to leave and reveal all the secrets, and so be it, right? Nothing that can be done about it. I mean, that's the issue, Lord. That's what I'm talking about, Lord Ronnie, is Enshittification. I just read that book, right? That's the issue. And again, I don't want to make it sound all good. The danger of creating high switching costs, especially artificially, or I guess actively, is if you create sufficiently high switching costs, what you can then do is make your product worse and worse and worse, right? And we talked about how companies do that. But there's also, I believe, ways, maybe passively, maybe honestly, pick your term, to create good or positive switching costs. So, for example, you're part of a club, you're part of a football team, the coaches, the players, they create an atmosphere that's fun, that's enjoyable, that people want to attend, that people want to be a part of. As a consequence of that, you've created a high switching cost, because if people leave, one of the things that's going to happen is they're not going to get that enjoyment, right? High switching costs, I don't think is positive or negative. I think high switching cost is value neutral. It's valuable if the switching costs are being produced organically, naturally, and result in a more enjoyable experience, or are the result of a more enjoyable experience. They're negative or bad if they are being used by companies to entrap people into a product or service that they don't necessarily want to be part of, and are using that as a safety, for example, in order to reduce the value of the product. I mean, I got my vaccine boosters and I'm proud of it. I get my vaccine boosters every year. I mean, there's one, Nathan, famous one, William Morgan, if I'm getting the name correctly, the Morgan Affair. That's the most famous example of it. Beyond that, though, I mean, there's been so many examples of Freemasons revealing secrets. It's crazy. Although you need to keep in mind, a lot of them are themselves not part of legitimate Masonic lodges, right? I've known a few Masons who reveal the secrets, and you find out they're part of clandestine or irregular lodges. And as Dad points out, the other danger is you can, reveal all the secrets you want. You're not going to know which is legitimate, which is baloney. So you need to keep that in mind as well. And that's one of the biggest dangers that we have in Freemasons, or not Freemasons, but members of the public have. I've seen so many guys say, I know about Freemasonry because I saw this report, I saw that report, only to find out that they had no idea what they were talking about, right? Right, they had no idea what they were talking about because the information they got was from a clandestine lodge member. So you need to keep that in mind. So a legitimate lodge is a lodge which is recognized by, it's a lodge which is recognized by a legitimate Grand Lodge. A legitimate Grand Lodge is one that's recognized by other Masonic bodies and other Masonic lodges, AF and AM. There's a council of recognition, or committee of recognition that writes reports every year. The simplest answer is, if you are, in my lodge, every, at the front of every register, there's a list. And that list is a list of recognized grand lodges as decided by my jurisdiction, the Grand Lodge of Ontario, in the province of, sorry, the Grand Lodge of Canada in the province of Ontario. So really, a legitimate lodge or a regular lodge is any lodge that is recognized by other grand lodges through recognition and regularity. If they are being irregular, for example, they may do things like not allow, Jewish people to join or something like that. In that case, what you would see is other grand lodges would get together and say, we don't recognize them. When you kind of learn as you go. When you're joining, though, if you're joining and you want to know if you're joining a recognized Masonic body, ask the lodge, which Grand Lodge are you a part of? And then contact that Grand Lodge. So if you're joining a lodge in Texas, ask them to which Grand Lodge they are affiliated with. All right, and if they say Grand Lodge of Texas, then you contact the Grand Lodge of Texas. You can find their information online, and you ask them, is this lodge in this city with this address, is it a legitimate Masonic lodge? I mean, that's a good way to define it as well. I feel like Courtney just said it better than I could. Yes, one that is regularly chartered by a recognized governing body. I supported the lockdowns and the mandates. A lot of Masons didn't. I can just speak for myself. Courtney is absolutely right. When a brother feels his absence isn't noticed, he may start to feel like, well, I guess I don't need to be there. However, it's a two-way street. It's a double-edged sword. We within Freemasonry have a responsibility to reach out to brothers, but brothers have a responsibility as well to be there and show up. It can't be put all on the lodge. Yeah, well, again, your Grand Lodge in Manitoba, right? It determines which lodges around the world are legitimate or illegitimate or regular for Manitoba. It's possible, for example, for a lodge, and this happens, especially with Prince Hall, like we in Ontario recognize some Prince Hall jurisdictions, but not others. Manitoba may recognize some Prince Hall jurisdictions and not others. What constitutes regular and recognized? It can start to get complicated the more involved you get within Freemasonry, but at the start, it's really relatively simple. Usually a Google search will tell you which lodge is regular and which lodge is not regular. Yes, part of Freemasonry, in order to advance through, I wouldn't use the term promoted. I would use the term advanced. That's a better term, I think. Part of it is memorization. We do have to do some memorization work. And one of the benefits of, joining Freemasonry is you develop better skills as it relates to memorization. So there is absolutely that, and that is the case. But yeah, that is one of the ways you advance. There is no overarching leader. There is no figurehead within the organization. Again, that's not how it works. There is no overall leader. The leader of my Freemasonry is the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Ontario in Canada. If I lived in Manitoba, it'd be the Grand Master of Manitoba. If I lived in Texas, it'd be the Grand Master of Texas, etc., etc. And it is not 20 Berry. Clearly, someone's been looking up a bunch of nonsense on social media. Freemasonry is not a Jewish organization, nor is it any type of, religious organization. I do not know who Bruno is, but no, memorization. Actually, I know somebody who wrote a really great book about memorization and how to memorize. It was really cool. So, yeah. I'm going to talk to them on the podcast at some point, but memorization is a very valuable skill and a very useful skill. So I hope that within Freemasonry, we spend a little bit more time focusing on memorization work, because it's valuable to learn, that's for sure. Yes, they do, and they do in Manitoba, actually. They also have an national conference a conference of grandmasters of North America as well. This year it's meeting in Chicago, interestingly enough. So yeah. Well, they're not imparted to the member. I mean, I guess they are. Yeah, you can use the term imparted. Um, the leader is not Jewish, 20 Barry. You're wrong again. The leader could be Jew. Well, there is no single the leader in Freemasonry. I'm sure some leaders of Freemasonry are Jewish. Some are Christian, some are Muslim, some may not have a particular faith. I mean, yeah, it's imparted in the sense that you kind of are forced to learn those skills, right? Memorization. Because if you want to move from your first degree to your second to your third degree, one of the things you need to do is um, one of the things that you need to do is you need to memorize work. So I would say that's a skill that's imparted. You also learn about things like conflict resolution because two Masons may have disagreements and you have to talk to them about the best way to deal with it. You also may have, you learn how to run a meeting successfully for the worshipful master. You learn how to kind of delegate. There's a lot of skills, leadership and otherwise, that exist that are imparted to you as a Freemason. We are not, I am speculative. Broski, please hit like and subscribe. I am a speculative Freemason. I'm not operative. No, you're not 20 Barry. Well, I mean, forced in the sense that, like I said, if you're the worshipful master of a lodge and two brothers have a disagreement, you kind of need to, if you want to be a good master, you kind of need to learn conflict resolution skills pretty quickly because you want to make sure you're maintaining the harmony of the lodge. And so you're going to have to find a way to sit them down and talk about the issues and the conflict and try to resolve it. Again, if you're the worshipful master, or even if you're not the worshipful master, but you're just paying attention in lodge, and you see how a meeting is run and how a meeting is operated, right? You have motions, you have debates, you have minutes, you have administration, you have, letting people speak. When has somebody spoken enough? When do you cut off the discussion? Do you let people talk more than once? How do you make sure people don't interrupt? You can either just watch those skills being developed, or you can sit in the master's chair yourself, and then you're forced to develop those skills. And then you can apply those skills to anything else, to board meetings, to events, to business, right? To negotiating with your family. If your one kid wants chicken nuggets and one kid wants pizza, whatever it is, you develop those skills and you develop those abilities. Just by the nature of being part of it. It's kind of like, how does being a gym member force you to get in shape? Well, it doesn't force you to get in shape, but if you take advantage of your gym membership, you're going to get yourself in shape. We do not, I mean, again, I guess if you want to use the term occult, you can, but I'm not a fan of that term because people apply too many negative connotations to occult. But, it's a social club. Speculative Masonry is a social club or social group. There are no costs of not, I mean, it depends like what you mean by not obeying. If, let's say, you're being a jerk in lodge and you're interrupting people and you're being rude and disrespectful, and the worshipful master may ask you to leave. And if you choose not to leave, then he may, what's called bring you up on Masonic charges. But he wouldn't bring up on Masonic charges for not obeying the worshipful master. He'd bring up on Masonic charges for being rude and disrespectful, first and foremost. And then when you tried to deal with it, he chose not to allow it, right? Or chose to ignore you. The worshipful master really doesn't have a ton of power in terms of things like for example, let's say there's some type of motion on the floor, like to spend $500 on an event. The worshipful master may have his own or his personal opinion on that motion, but at the end of the day, the lodge gets to vote. And if the lodge decides that they want to spend the money, then that's what happens, right? The master is there to make sure the rules are being followed and the processes are being followed. He's not there to force any particular process or decision. Well, that is almost certainly not true, Gooey. Um, no one. So within Freemasonry, we don't worship masters because Freemasonry is not a religion. We have worshipful masters, but most cities have a mayor that's called his worship. So if you're concerned about the term worshipful, then I hope you don't live in a city or community with a mayor that may likely be called his worship. Um, they're done in clubs such as Rotary, Elks, Moose, and you're welcome to join any of those you want. I choose to get those skills from Freemasonry because I love Freemasonry, right? There's nothing stopping you from joining the Rotary, for example. Um, well, operative Masons, it is a blue-collar tradesman. They could become Freemasons, and many do. Freemasonry or speculative Masonry evolved from operative or stone Masonry, right? I am doing well, Minotaur. Hope you're doing well also. Thank you for being here. Um, Minotaur, thank you for being back here once again. It's great to have you join. Well, I mean, you could argue they're all the same group, right, of brothers, in that there might be union brothers, but they're different in that one's a profession, one's a community group. I do not know what the paradox is of the human experience. I think Freemasonry makes the human experience for whatever it's worth. So there's that. Please take a moment, hit the like and subscribe button. That's my opinion on that. If you want to get through this human experience, hitting the like and subscribe button will help out big time. And doing a super chat of just 99 cents. So anyways, those are my thoughts on Enshittification. I hope it made sense. And I hope that maybe it helps us reconsider maybe our views on, or our thoughts on Freemasonry a little bit, for whatever it's worth. Well, I mean, the membership is not. There's way more Freemasons than there are, or speculative Masons than operative Freemasons. The process, I mean, they're different. They fulfill different kind of areas. They fulfill different goals and different purposes, right? One's a profession, one's personal, one's community. Goodbye, Dad. I love you, and thank you for being here. No, the Rotary Club is not. The Rotary Club is a different group altogether. Strategy operative Freemasons are bricklayers, stone workers. That's it. It's a profession. Rotary Club is a civic organization or civic group. I have no legs. I cannot stand up. But I think you know that already. That really sucks. I'm very sorry that happened. That's an example of we need to remember that there's a lot of conspiracy theory nonsense out there that really harms a lot of people. So we need to be really careful about that. We need to make sure our buildings are insured. We need to make sure our buildings have adequate security features, cameras, whatever else it might be. And we need to be careful. So I'm a speculative Mason. All right, strategy. I feel like you're not getting this. Maybe I'm not explaining this well, but I'm doing my best. Operative Freemasons are stone workers, bricklayers. They're people who stone masons. They build things from stone. Speculative Freemasonry applies to what I am. It applies to Freemasonry. So it applies to myself. If I was a stonemason, I would be an operative Mason. I would be building things from stone. I'm not. I'm a speculative Mason in that I'm a member of the civic or social group. I mean, he may have had space rocks, but no other. I don't know any space. I don't know any Masons who have space rocks. But okay. Grin O beats. I have no legs. It means I have no legs. I was born missing my legs. I'm in a wheelchair. So which is, I when you're born missing legs, it's not so bad. At least I don't think it was so bad. I learned how to operate and how to work with having no legs, how to move. I think it's different than if you had legs and then miss them, lose them in an accident or disease or whatever it is. Um, I think that what happens with that when you do that is, when that happens to you, you have to relearn everything. You have to relearn how to, um, everything from how to walk, how to balance, how to use an artificial limb. I was born without them, so I learned right away how to maneuver in the world. Yes, Minotaur is exactly right. As speculative Masons, we use the working tools of operative Masons in allegory. People always say Freemasonry got, symbols, or Freemasonry evolved from the Kabbalah, Judaism, Gnosticism, Hermetism, whatever. They'll always pick these different things. And certainly Freemasonry borrowed a great deal from all of the above. However, ultimately, where Freemasonry took the vast majority of its, the vast majority of its symbols and ideas and um, um, processes, allegories, it was ultimately from operative Freemasons and operative stonemasons, excuse me, more so than anything else. Well, I mean, Freemasonry metaphorically it is, right? Not with space rocks per se, but without question, within Freemasonry, um, you know, stone or rock is an incredibly important, a symbol. I would argue, in my opinion, that not just for Freemasons, but for human beings, without question, stone and rock are incredibly important, incredibly valuable. The story of humanity is the story of stone. It is the story of rocks. It was the creation of stone tools and the creation of stone work that allowed us as humans to evolve. So, well, I mean, there's a ton of stuff that is respectful as it relates or special about stonemasons. I mean, you don't have to be a Freemason to respect stonemasons, right? They I mean, stonemasonry, they built pyramids, they built temples, they built cathedrals, they built the Great Wall of China. I mean, anytime anybody has ever built anything out of stone, it was stone masonry by definition. And again, from an evolutionary perspective, it was the creation of stone tools that allowed for our evolution. Goblet Tepe. So again, or I think that's how you pronounce it. There's no question that the story of humanity is a story of stone as much as anything else. When it comes to Freemasonry in particular, the reason we have such respect for stonemasonry is because we evolved or derived from stonemasonry, right? We derived or evolved from stonemason guilds. In the 15th and 16th centuries, you had stonemasons who had guilds or trade unions, and then speculative masons or men began to join these guilds, not to build things from stone, but for the social aspect of it. And it just grew from there. But we always maintained our respect for stonemasons for allowing us to be part of their group, at least the social aspect of their group, by, our symbols and our references and our symbolism. Neolithic, absolutely. Well, the Paleolithic and the Neolithic, right? We named two time periods after stone, the Paleolithic and the Neolithic. Nice. A lot of Masons do like cigars. Um, on the level, square conduct, blackballing, it's all Masonic terms. I am not familiar with the content creator Minutemen, so I can't say that. I don't know if he's a Masonic content creator. I don't know what he talks about, but I don't know him myself. Can't speak to him. No, there's not. I mean, some would argue, I don't think there is. Some would argue Memphis Mizraim would be a beyond 33rd, but that's not in North America anyways. But again, keep in mind when it comes to the, you need to keep in mind when it comes to Freemasonry, the highest degree in Freemasonry is the third degree. That's the most important degree in Freemasonry. That's the highest degree. 33rd is not the highest degree, it's the third degree. Yes, I got a gap in my teeth. Please like and subscribe. Giving me the third degree. That's another one. Absolutely. My favorite board game? Interesting enough, I'll give a Masonic answer. A few years ago, I created a Masonic board game based on Freemasonry for a brother to honor his service and work for Freemasonry. It was a Monopoly game, but I switched out, I customized it. So all of the pieces, I switched them so that they were actually, Masonic related instead of, the typical properties, which was quite fun. Um, I mean, well, I think strategy, I'm not, I think it doesn't have to be like, I'm not a big fan of that term, just a blue collar job. I mean, I think we should be, whether it's any blue collar job, stone, mason, or electrician, or plumber, or carpenter, or mechanic, we should have great respect for blue collar jobs. Doesn't have to be stone masonry, it just has to be anybody who's working for a living and trying to earn a living, whatever they're doing, however they're doing it. No, nothing but respect for them, at least in my opinion. Because you can say, you don't have much respect for stonemasons, but if you need a house to be built and to stay up, if you need a wall to be built and not fall on you, suddenly you care an awful lot about stonemasonry and stonemasons. So I think we should have respect for all blue collar jobs. Well, it was based, Jason, on the rooms within the Masonic temple that I'm a member of. So, for example, um, like you had, instead of, I can't remember them all now because it's been like 10 years, but instead of like Boardwalk Avenue, it was the Blue Lodge Room. Instead of, I don't know, Oriental Avenue, it was the front lobby, right? So I'd assume the railroads were themselves locations within the building. The utilities, I might have kept them the same because buildings have utilities in fairness. So it would have been in keeping with the theme. Well, Freemasonry is about whatever each member wants it to be about. There is no single idea as to like what Freemasonry is about. For me personally, Freemasonry is about the belief that the world can be made better through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth, which is something I greatly appreciate. I would not go by what you see on YouTube, Anthony. You need to be incredibly careful. A lot of stuff that's on YouTube is full of baloney. Freemasonry is not satanic. So you need to keep that in mind. Hello, Lucy Burgess. Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. I hope, Anthony, you'll hit the like and subscribe button. Need to get a few more people hitting that like and subscribe button this stream. Maybe do a super chat. Just 99 cents helps out big time. Um, I'm almost at $20 in a super chat. So just one more, just 99 cents. It'll get me over $20 in super chats. Almost 20 years. Brotherly love, relief, and truth. I joined about 20 years ago, Lucy Burgess. I guess it would be technically 19. I always just say 20 because about 2007. I've been to Colombia, Anthony. I've been to Bogota, Colombia. It was absolutely incredible. Beautiful, beautiful place. I loved it. So I've never been to Medellin, but I'd love to be there. Um, but I was in Bogota and beautiful place, beautiful people. I absolutely loved it. So yeah, What is relief? Relief, I mean, you define relief in different ways, but I define it as to ease one's burdens, right? Or to provide reassurance. So, relief could be as simple as, hey, my brother's having a tough time. I'm going to grab a coffee with him and talk to him and see how he's doing. Or maybe not even talk. Maybe just sit quietly and let him sit quietly next to me. Or maybe I will, I don't know, join a, I know he's struggling, so I'll bring him some food. Or we just had a snowstorm, I'll go shovel out his driveway. And then maybe I'll do that not just for my Masonic brother, but for his neighbors if they're struggling and can't shovel snow anymore because they're too old. Relief means easing one's burdens or providing reassurance if one is struggling. Um, well, Earth, true. I mean, it's not the Masonic mission, it's my mission to try to make the world a better place. Now, I might not succeed. I think there's a lot of evidence that actually I'm failing in that mission, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying, right? Because what's the alternative? Let the worst aspects of humanity win? I'd rather not do that if I could get away with it. Um, how do you define truth? That's a really good question. I mean, I would say something that is possible to be rationally understood combined with observation. So, for example, if I say I love something or I love someone, um, somebody else can observe my behaviors towards that thing or that person and will be able to judge whether that's true or not. Now, there's always going to be a subjective element to truth in that, we're never going to know for sure anything. However, we can make rational and intelligent observations and then judge based on outcomes, right? So, for example, I don't know with 100% certainty that the following statement is true. There are no invisible leprechauns in my apartment. There could very well be invisible leprechauns in my apartment that are just really good at hiding from me and not making any noise. However, I can rely upon my judgments and my common sense to come to some statement approximating truth, which is, for all intents and purposes, there are no invisible leprechauns in my apartment. Um, Western North Carolina. Awesome. Thank you, Anthony, for the subscription. I greatly appreciate that. I don't know what that means, Chad. Please hit like and subscribe. I mean, I don't wait on anybody within Freemasonry. We have Master Masons, but I don't wait on them. I don't even really serve them. I mean, I serve the lodge, I suppose you could say, but I do that as a master as well. Like even as a worshipful master, I'm still ultimately to be the worshipful master is as much a position of service to others and service to your brethren as anything else, including service to the entered apprentices. I try to be. I definitely don't always succeed, but I always try my best to be awesome, I suppose. Thank you so much, Anthony, and thank you for being here. Yeah, I've been doing this stream for a while. Again, my goal is to promote the ways Freemasonry was and is relevant to the communities in which it's located. I did not, Chad, so I'm very sorry. I do not get the joke. Um, as he should not. As he should not. Good for him. You want to learn the secrets? Just got to join. That's all. You just got to join. Um, what do you want to know? I feel like I've talked a fair bit about Freemasonry, but what do you want to know specifically? I'll do my best to answer the question for you. Um, I did talk again earlier about Enshittification and Freemasonry and the ideas the ideas from that book and the concepts from that book, which I think are absolutely applicable to Freemasonry, including switching costs and what that means. Well, fair enough. I will try to do more discussions on Freemasonry. However, keep in mind, I also try my best to respond to the chat and hear what they want to hear me talk about as well. I mean, Freemasonry adopted the master and apprentice tradition from stonemasonry because, again, tradesmen and trades unions, the whole point was you had your master and you had your apprentice, right? Your apprentice was the new person who was learning how to master his skills. But the idea of an apprentice or an apprenticeship, it's not unique to Freemasonry, nor is it unique to stonemasonry. I mean, it is something that has been in existence in some form or another for probably millennia. Um, there are Freemasons all over the world. However, keep in mind there is no single global entity for Freemasonry, right? Rather, every Mason is under a different jurisdiction. Welcome back, Courtney. Thank you for returning once again. I hope that you're doing well. We're going to give it a few more minutes. We're going to wait to see who else joins. I'm going to be back on tonight on my personal YouTube channel at 6:30 with 6:30 Eastern with Smokey the Clown. That should be great fun. I'm looking forward to it. And I hope to see you all hope to see you all there. Give it a bit more time though. Let's wait to see who joins. Thank you all for hanging out and being here. Yes, Nathan, there are several countries that ban Freemasonry. Cultures, I mean, I would not say cultures ban Freemasonry. I mean, some faith groups are not a fan of Freemasonry, such as, such as, um, like the Catholic faith, for example, but it's not really a culture per se. Iran, I believe the UAE, Qatar. What's so fascinating about that, though, is even in countries where Freemasonry is banned, Freemasonry still exists. Um, for example, it existed within, on military bases in Qatar, on military bases in the UAE. It exists, there may be people who joined Freemasonry before it was banned in Iran who are now Freemasons, or people who have traveled, became Freemasons, and then returned to Iran. So even in places where it is either banned or in theory does not exist, it still exists. It absolutely still exists. All right, well, you do whatever you want to. How many countries have I been to on my Masonic journey? I've been incredibly lucky, incredibly blessed. I have been to Canada, United States, Mexico, Colombia, Rio de Janeiro, the Philippines, United Kingdom, England, and Scotland. I'm going to count that as, I guess I'll count that as two. And then I had stopovers in South Korea and Dubai. So 10. which is incredible. Um, it depends. I can definitely be much less calm in real life, but Freemasonry is not. YouTube is not real life. So I've learned I try to be calm therein. They probably do. I mean, you look at it again from a cultural perspective or religious perspective. What the Catholic Church did with Knights of Columbus, for example. So I'm sure it's possible, but I couldn't say. I mean, the one issue is Freemasonry is a civic institution which has private elements to it. It's very hard to, in some ways, um, import that into theocratic governance. And by the way, I should mention we just had International Holocaust Day. The Nazis banned Freemasonry, both in Germany and countries in which they ruled during, World War II. So you've traveled a lot, Anthony Reed. Good for you. Never been to Japan, but I really want to go there. I was in the Middle East for exactly 8 hours on a layover, but I'd love to get back there and visit it again. It was incredible. I really was impressed with the airport there. That's all I saw. I stayed in a hotel in the airport, but it was beautiful, and I was greatly, greatly impressed. I thought it was beautiful. I mean, you definitely get benefits, Nathan, from being a Freemason. The main benefit being I love it. There's no benefits in the sense of like you get health care like a job has. However, it might be possible. There is a safety net aspect of it where if you are struggling financially, you can potentially contact your Masonic lodge and express an interest in joining and see if they will let you join. Like that can, or sorry, if you're a member of Masonic Lodge and you're struggling financially, you can contact that lodge and ask for benevolence in some cases, ask for money to help you get through something. They may help you out. It really depends. But there's no like official benefits in that sense. Those are employer provided benefits. Some lodges did create some insurance over the years. That was actually very popular amongst a variety of different Masonic and fraternal organizations. I mean, go where you love. That's the most important thing, Anthony. Go where you love. Um, so, if your favorite state is a quote unquote low crime state, then go to that. But if your favorite state is, higher crime, but you think you can make it better, maybe consider going there. I don't know. Like I visit Detroit and Chicago all the time. Everybody always tells me, at least on the media, how dangerous those places are or whatever it is. I think that's a bunch of baloney. I love those states. I love those places. I think and those cities. Never felt unsafe there. So the Philadelphia Masonic Temple is incredible. Yes, Freemasonry does not have a central governing body. Freemasonry is decentralized. So, well, I appreciate that because Chicago is, in my opinion, it's the greatest city in the world. I think it's absolutely amazing. Strategy Master, I'm trying to do this for a living, so I hope you'll help me out. Consider doing a super chat, just 99 cents. Help me get over $20 in the super chat. I'm less than $1 away. So anybody wants to do a 99-cent super chat that'll help me get over $20, which would be a successful super chat. I mean, all I can say is me personally, and everybody can do what they want. I don't want to give everybody needs to do what makes them feel safe. Absolutely. But I've loved being in Chicago and I've been there all hours of the day and all hours of the night. Never been an issue. Having said that, I think we're talking about safety. We should always remember that we as Freemasons have a responsibility to the safety of our communities and our buildings. We should have, for example, you know, we should have um, alarms, cameras, secure locking mechanisms, insurance, well-lit areas. And if we feel that the areas around our buildings are not safe, we should be making sure that, amongst other things, we contact our city, our police, our community in Windsor through 311 and explain to them like what is not safe about the building and how we can potentially, how the city can help make it safe. Maybe they need to add better lighting. Maybe they need to add better or more secure bus features. Maybe they need to put in some cameras. And it could be safety in terms of like crime. It could just be safety in terms of infrastructure. Like, are your sidewalks safe, or are they cracked and dangerous for people to walk on, or not usable for people with wheelchairs? Do you need to have? Is there a public sidewalk where the snow needs to be removed, or the street is not being plowed? All that stuff matters, and all that stuff is important. I do not know what Zone 2 is. And I love to travel, Strategy Master. It's one of my favorite things in the world. I consider myself in many ways a professional traveler. Expectations in what way? I'm not sure what that means. Well, no, each group of Masons has a Grand Lodge. So in Ontario, I am under the jurisdiction of the Grand Lodge of Canada in the province of Ontario. I follow the rules as set out by that Grand Lodge. Those are my expectations. But those expectations do not extend outside the borders of Ontario. If I lived in Manitoba, I have a Grand Lodge there as well, Grand Master of Manitoba, etc., right? It's jurisdictional. That's how the rules are set. And then in terms of my ability to travel and visit Masonic lodges outside of Ontario, I rely on recognition and regulation and those Grand Lodges that are selected through and by the Grand Master. Well, they're financed by me primarily, though again, they're also assisted through this channel. So Strategy Master, consider doing a 99-cent super chat, sharing this stream, becoming a Patreon. All that stuff helps out big time. I mean, there are many examples of groups that are not recognized. They're called clandestine. It just happens. It's one of those things that happens. It's part of it. You're always going to have clandestine groups that exist, right, within any organization. It's up to us to be careful and to do our due diligence. No, I mean, Freemasonry does not discriminate based on one's kind of physical impairments. We're going to give it another, let's say, 7 minutes. I'll be ending this stream. I will be back on 6:30 and then tonight at 1 a.m. as well. Hey, spell checking can be incredibly difficult. Don't get me wrong, David Thompson. I get you. I absolutely get you. So don't worry. I get how challenging spell check can be sometimes. Yes, in fact, I would say Freemasonry has always been an organization that celebrates tolerance, whether it be religious tolerance or political tolerance or tolerance for different ideas, ethnicities, different people with different experiences. I think that's the beautiful thing about it. It's one of the things I love most about it. Yeah, that happens. I mean, that's the issue with like text to speech, right? One of the biggest challenges of text to, or speech to text, I should say, is absolutely the challenge that comes with artificial intelligence, predictive models, they don't always get stuff right, right? They don't always get stuff right, which is why we still need to be careful. We cannot rely exclusively on we cannot rely exclusively on artificial intelligence or predictive models, and that includes spell check. I will check it out, Nathan. I don't know any of his stuff, so I can't speak to it, but I will absolutely check it out. Um, I mean, there is no. I mean, ultimately, a Freemason is a designation of membership. The personality traits behind them. I mean, like it'd be like no different than membership in a gym. They all have different personalities. Some may trend more optimistic, some may trend more pessimistic. I would say those Masons who remain active in Freemasonry and remain active in a lodge, I would define them as being more curious, probably more inquisitive and more optimistic if you're showing up to lodge regularly. But it's not a guarantee, right? Um, it's not a guarantee. So Freemasonry, again, David Thompson, I think a lot of things that people are misunderstanding. Freemasonry is not a belief system, it's not a religion. To be a Freemason, you must believe in a supreme being, but every Freemason will believe in, his or her own version of it. We have Christian Freemasons, Jewish Freemasons, Muslim Freemasons, Hindu, Sikh, Indigenous, etc., etc. Well, kind, then you're a very stupid person if you heard that and you believe it. If you don't believe it and you're just bringing that up on the stream, then you're still a very stupid person because why would you bring up something gross like that on the stream? No, I've never seen anything in any Masonic rituals or ceremonies that would be considered unsafe, unsanitary, or against one's religious, civic, or moral responsibilities. Um, I mean, sure. David Thompson has been within Freemasonry a variety of conflicts, different groups forming. The most famous example of the conflict of Freemasonry was the Ancients versus the Moderns, which were two Masonic groups that existed in, I forget when it was now, 1730 something to 1813. I mean, there's always going to be disputes within Freemasonry. Prince Hall versus quote unquote regular, different Prince Hall groups. Just like there will always be disputes between like all different groups and organizations. It's human nature. Um, Freemasonry is a civic or social group. It's a club. Think about it like a clubhouse. You're 5 years old, you start a clubhouse with your friends. That's what Freemasonry is. Um, well, if he's a warlock, then he's insane because warlocks don't exist. Um, Anime bandit, what perks do you get? I mean, every Mason gets his own unique perks, right? There is no single perk. Like for me, one of the perks I get as being a Freemason is I get to feel closer to my grandfather. He was a Mason, but he passed away before I was born. Um, and so I never got to meet him in person. But he's a Mason and I'm a Mason. So he was a Mason, I am a Mason. So one of the perks I get is I get to feel closer to my grandfather and feel like I have more of a relationship with him. You develop skills and abilities in things like memorization, conflict resolution, administrative, organization. You get to meet people you will not otherwise meet. You're put in a privileged position, but ultimately, the one perk you get is the opportunity to try to make a better world through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. Um, Again, every Mason has to decide that for himself. What's the purpose of starting a club as a 5-year-old? What's the purpose of starting a group, with you and your friends? What's the purpose of going out with a bunch of friends to the bar? You enjoy each other's company. That's the purpose of Freemasonry. You join a group, you join a club, you enjoy one another's company. Over time, you can add things to it, like you can add charitable endeavors, you can add social functions, you can add ceremony and ritual as a way to create bonds of brotherhood. But, were you never part of something bigger than yourself, never part of a group? Ultimately, you do it because you enjoy company and you enjoy being with people. So, um, yeah, that's the point. I'm not sure. I think that guy was full of baloney. I saw some clips. I think, I'm not going to speak on Sean Ryan, but, I saw some clips of the expert and he was full of baloney. So, and again, you can believe me or you can believe him. What I'd say is I've been a Freemason for almost 20 years. I've been to over 1,000 Masonic events around the world, in the Philippines, in Brazil, in Bogota, across America, across Canada. So yeah, I guess you'll have to decide whom you choose to believe. Um, well, some can go to church. Um, you can get a community in a variety of ways, Travis Lundy. If going to church is the way that you get a community, then more power to you, right? Some may get it through sports. Some may get it through a chess club. I get it through Freemasonry because I love Freemasonry. Nothing sets it apart from being not corruptible, David Thompson. We're human beings, which means we are by definition corruptible. Human beings are corruptible. What I'd say is what stops it from being corruptible on a mass scale is its decentralized nature, right? Even if, for example, Freemasonry became corrupted, define as you will, in, let's say, Maine in the United States, that doesn't mean anything for Freemasonry in Ontario because it's decentralized. One of the benefits of having a decentralized order is, like, if you had a centralized government, if you had a single Masonic body that governed Freemasonry around the world, then if it became corrupt, um, then you could argue Freemasonry is corrupt as a whole. However, because there's so many different bodies and groups and grand lodges and organizations within Freemasonry, there is no single governing body that can become quote unquote corrupted. So, well, what specifically piqued your interest to petition the lodge? I mean, Courtney, my father was a Freemason, and so I always assumed I would join sooner or later. And then when I came across this particular Masonic lodge, which I'm a member, I decided to join because I knew I'd be staying there for a while and I knew I had the time to join. I would say the biggest difference of view is just how much work it is to maintain a lodge. I never realized that. How it is that I came to, how much work it is to maintain a lodge. All of the administrative tasks that go into maintaining a building, into maintaining a social group. It's not as easy as people think. It actually is work, genuinely. There is no Freemason's Bible. Travis Lundy, you are a very foolish person. There is a King James version of the Bible, which many people have read, which some people will put a square and compass on, as well as a section in the front to sign, and they'll use that as part of Masonic rituals. You could also use a Quran, you could use a Torah, you could use an eagle feather, etc., etc. I mean, I don't know anything about I know very little about Scientology, Nathan. I've never met a Scientologist who's a Freemason, but what I would say is I would have no issue sitting with a Scientologist in lodge. If, someone's a Scientologist, so long as they believe in a supreme being, they are welcome to be part of my lodge. I have no issue with it. I do not know what the Rainbow Bible is or the Trump Bible is, but I would be very suspect of at least the Trump Bible, because I don't know what that would mean. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I learned. It's really hard to be a Freemason if you dedicate yourself to it and actually care about it and put the time and effort into it. It's not some super easy thing to do. I mean, I don't have a wife and kids. Most of the Freemasons I know absolutely have a wife and kids. I would say the majority do. I mean, but there is a loneliness to dedicating yourself to something. It doesn't have to be Freemasonry, but if you're dedicating yourself to spending as much time on anything as you can, including Freemasonry, then it's going to be very tiresome. It's going to be very lonely because you're not going to be out with your friends. You're going to be at the lodge doing work. Don't think about it in terms of level or degree, Shaggy. That's not the right way to think about it. The what you need to think about is degree and rank. Sorry, degree and office, excuse me, Shaggy. It's degree and office. I am a third degree Master Mason, which is the highest degree within Freemasonry. Also, I'm 18th degree Scottish Rite. I am the office worshipful master of Border Cities Lodge number 554, which is my office. Nathan, the significance of believing in a higher power is twofold. First, it is traditional, and Freemasons are big on tradition. However, the other reason, the thing you need to keep in mind, is within Freemasonry, we do take obligations, we do take oaths. The theory is, if you believe in a supreme being, then when you are taking an obligation or oath, you're taking it to that supreme being, and you are therefore less likely to break your obligation and break your oath. It's no different than in court when you swear on a Bible. The reason they have you swear on the Bible is because the theory is you're less likely to lie if you've sworn to tell the truth and you've sworn it on a holy book that, means something to your conscience, means something to your heart. So you need to keep, those are the two reasons. Sci-Fi Michael, please hit like and subscribe. I've been a Freemason for just about 20 years, 19 years, thereabout. Look, if somebody is a Scientologist and they say their supreme being is L. Ron Hubbard, that's fine with me. I would have to believe, though, what I would have to believe is they're speaking genuinely, and there's a genuine level of, it touches one's conscience. If they were to lie, they feel like it would be somehow contradictory to or of L. Ron Hubbard. If I thought they were trolling or just making it up, then I wouldn't let them join. Or I would be concerned about them joining. Ruckus, if you want to be a Mason, you have to be of the correct age, at least over 18 or 21, depending on the jurisdiction. You have to believe in a supreme being. And then you have to make the first step, which is approach the lodge and express your interest in joining. That's what you have to do. So where do you start? You need to find the Masonic Lodge in your area, send them an email, write them a letter, give them a call, and express your interest in joining. And that's the most important thing. They have to sincerely believe it, yes. But again, I don't know enough about the Scientologist beliefs, quote unquote, to say. I would need to learn more about what they actually believe. But I have no issue with them. I don't judge, and I don't judge anybody, however it is they come to find kind of peace or comfort or, their religious beliefs. I think within Freemasonry, part of what that is religious tolerance. You do not sell your soul to the Satan, Travis Lundy. You are a foolish person. Part of joining Freemasonry is a leap of faith, so I don't give specifics. Ruckus, what I will say is I've never seen any rite or ceremony. I've never seen any vow or obligation that would be against one's civic, religious, familial, or any other responsibilities they may have, nor have I seen anything that is illegal or unsafe or anything within that context. No, Freemasons are not the same as Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones is different. I would say, at least for me, Joe the Schmo, my idea of a supreme being is closer to a concept of Mother Nature. My belief in the supreme being is, I would define the supreme being as the rational nature of the universe as understood through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. Travis, you've been reading too much dumb stuff. Specifically, you've been reading too much Albert Pike and not understanding what it's saying and what it means. Because you're a very foolish person, my suspicion is you also are probably leading not such a great life. And as a consequence of that, you're looking for conspiracies as a way to avoid thinking about what's actually happening in your life. I didn't time you out, at least my knowledge, but thank you for being here. Good to see you. Um, I mean, you could. I mean, it's not a bad idea, right? You could reframe the secrets as non-disclosure agreements. People may be more willing to understand a non-disclosure agreement as opposed to as opposed to secrets but non-disclosure, because a lot of people have to sign them for work. I even sometimes use the idea of trade secrets. Like I point out a company like Coca-Cola is not going to share with you its, trademarked recipe, how it makes Coca-Cola. Having said that, my one concern would be the danger of, in theory, people might hear the term NDA and assume we're referring to, like, assume economics, because NDA can have a very economic term or economic meaning to it. So that could be an issue. But I like the idea of it. I think people better understand an NDA. Well, what I have found is it's good to be Christian. There's no issue with that. But what I have found, ICU, is very often when it is a case that somebody goes into conspiracy theories, whatever they may be. It could be about Freemasonry, it could be about the Jews, it could be about NASA, whatever it is. Usually they're leading a very not good life. The problem is if you're leading a life that's not good, that's challenging, and fixing it can be very hard. It requires looking in the mirror. It requires examining how you're doing in life. It requires making changes. It's much easier to find a conspiracy theory and then spend all of your time focusing on that, because it's easier to fight the Masons, some amorphous group that you can, spend all your time fighting, as opposed to changing your own behaviors and your own life to create a better one for yourself. That's really hard. So whenever people come on here and they repeat conspiracy theories over and over again, my assumption is usually their life is probably not so great. Rooster, I do not know what the noticing and the spreading is. I hope Freemasonry spreads. I don't know, Travis. My suspicion is it's not. Now, again, it could appear to be fine on the outside. Like, I don't know, you could be doing fine financially, you could be doing fine with a family, whatever it is. That doesn't mean you're doing emotionally fine, and that doesn't mean you don't have problems. A great example of that, one of the shows I really enjoy is The Pit. And there was a scene in the first season where they were working with a guy came into the ER, and he was an addict. And he was pointing out, I can't be an addict. I have a job. I have a family. I pay my taxes. So I can't be suffering from addiction. They pointed out, addicts come in all shape and sizes. And I'm sure your life may seem fine, but I have found very often conspiracy theories can be a type of addiction for people. Rooster, I don't know what the noticing and spreading is, but I hope you hit the like and subscribe button. Yeah, no, addiction absolutely comes in all shapes and sizes. I've known a lot of people who suffered from addiction, both in my professional life. I was a probation officer and I worked in a jail, and in my personal life. Just because a lot of people, when they think of addiction, they think of junkies, they think of people living on the street. They think of people struggling with whatever it is they're struggling with. That doesn't mean it's always the case. A lot of people can have good jobs and good lives, but they still have emotional issues, psychological issues, and they still struggle with whatever it is they struggle with. I do not worship. I worship, again, my supreme being is the rational nature of the universe as expressed through the rational nature of the universe as expressed through science and geometry. That is who I worship. You may worship somebody different. Well, it didn't set me off, although it does annoy me because, again, foolishness annoys me quite a bit. And I try to deal with it as well as I can and try to remember that you're probably struggling and suffering, but because usually the response to struggling and suffering is foolishness, but doesn't always make it easy. Well, I mean, I agree with that 100%, Nathan Blevins. There is a huge issue with, I think, even substances like, caffeine is a readily available substance. You can get it over the counter. You can, get coffee every day as much as you want. Nobody judges you for it, but I think caffeine can absolutely become a very damaging addiction. Certainly, caffeine pills can be very scary. Just because something's over the counter doesn't mean it cannot form addictive properties. Just because something doesn't have psychedelic effects doesn't mean it can't become addicting, like, for example, steroid use. Um, we need to be really careful. Um, which is fine. We both get to worship whom we so choose, Travis Lundy. That's the beautiful thing about living in a free country, is we both get to worship whom we choose and how we choose. It might not be good for you, but it's good for you, for me. I would say, I don't know if Freemasonry can become addictive, but certainly Freemasonry can become unhealthy if you spend too much time focusing on it. But that's true for everything. That's true for religion as well, right? That's true for sports. That's true for almost anything. If I'm spending all of my time at a Masonic lodge and ignoring my responsibilities to my family, to my wife, to my kids, to my job, then that absolutely becomes unhealthy, and I need to reconsider. Balance is important. Freemasonry teaches us the value of balance, so we need to keep those things in mind. I mean, I can't speak for America. I'm in Canada, but I do love America. I've said it a million times. Freemasonry is the Freemasonry. Canada is the greatest country in the world, in part because we have the greatest neighbors in the world. Travis, we do not worship. I mean, I do not worship Satan. Freemason does not worship Satan. If you keep repeating yourself over and over again, it becomes a very uninteresting stream. Um, I'm not scared of ice. I personally am not a big fan of ice, but I'm not scared of them. I try my best to not live my life in fear. I don't think that's really helpful. Being afraid of things. I think all we can do is try to live our best lives, try to be helpful to those around us, worry about our spiritual selves through religion and our civic selves through civic institutions, and you go from there, right? Again, the Grand Architect is a it's like a stopgap term. It's a term like Supreme Being that can be applied to a variety of different religious beliefs. If you're Muslim, then your Grand Architect will be Allah. If you're Christian, I guess the Trinity. Hindu, Sikh, Jewish. If you're indigenous, it may be the Creator, Mother Nature. For me, again, the Grand Architect is best understood as the rational nature of the universe, as expressed through geometric principles. If you've been reading Albert Pike and not understanding what he's saying, then, you may have a different view of it. I do not worship Lucifer either. Again, Shaggy, stop telling me what I worship. It's not a very kind thing to do. You'd be annoyed by it too if I told you what you worship as opposed to taking you at your word. It can become addictive. I love my Indian friends and family and brothers. They're a wonderful part of Freemasonry. They're a wonderful part of Canada. It's not an invasion. I've never once felt unsafe or like I'm being threatened or some armies crossing the border. So, um, right? I mean, everybody should get if nothing else, everybody should get the opportunity to speak for themselves and what they believe and not have somebody tell them what they believe or what they worship, right? That's a very, I would suggest, uncool thing to do. I don't understand the 7 Hermetic principles. I mean, I know of them, but I couldn't explain them. Freemasonry is not really Hermetic. I mean, it parallels it for sure, but it parallels a lot of different things. Um, You got to take the good with the bad, and it's tough to do. It's hard to do, but you have to take the good with the bad. Um, that's true for social media. There's a lot of good of social media. There's also a lot of bad in social media. However, it's very hard to get the bad. It's very hard to, if you're not willing to accept the bad, you're not going to get to the good. So it's a challenge. I do not know what Shaggy's point is, but probably not. What do I think about the U.S. and Greenland? Asked Nathan. Interesting enough, I did a quick check. I could not find any Masonic lodges in Greenland. On a side note, just an interesting thing to bring up. I mean, I don't know. I hope that Greenland remains. I don't think Greenland wants to be part of America, so I guess I hope whatever the citizens of Greenland wants is what they get. I think it should be up to them to decide their political affiliations and nation and everything else. I don't think it's up to anybody else to decide those things. I highly question that, Jurian. That sounds like nonsense to me. Um, My supreme being is the rational nature of the universe as expressed through geometry and scientific principles. You can think whatever you want, Ruckus. I mean, when it comes to, I do not know what it means to debate on my beliefs. I mean, I have my beliefs, you have yours. Um, well, there you go, Rooster. Okay. There you go. Dad is back. The great architect is my parents, without a doubt. And your family in a more general sense. Canada, Windsor, Ontario, greatest country in the world. I've always said Canada's the greatest country in the world, in part because we have the greatest neighbors in the world. So there you go. Well, you can think whatever you want, Ruckus. I'm probably not going to convince you otherwise, which is fine. You are free to think whatever you want. You're wrong, but that's fine. People get the right to be incorrect. Erica Kirk is not a Freemason, at least to my knowledge. I've never heard any evidence that she is. I think Carney's doing a pretty good job myself, but that's my personal opinion. That doesn't reflect Freemasons. Every Freemason will have his own opinion. I'm also not an Israel shill. I'm a member of a Grand Lodge in Israel, but that's to support the people there. Everybody gets their own decisions on the government. I have some pretty significant concerns about the government of Israel, but that's my own personal opinion. Canada does not suck. Canada's awesome. Greatest country in the world. Okay. Christ is your grand architect, Travis. That doesn't mean everybody is Christian, nor do they have to be. Now, if the other people who are not Christian, myself included, are wrong, then I guess we'll find out in the next life. But in the meantime, we're here on this life, and we need to find a way to get along with everybody. And the one way to do that is through tolerance for different religions and different religious beliefs. Um, how would I prove you wrong, Ruckus? How would I prove you wrong based on what you believe? I did visit the lodge in Brampton ages ago. Beautiful place, really cool people. I loved it. Um, Maybe I'm Jewish, maybe I'm not. You don't have to be Jewish to be a member of a lodge in Israel. They have Christian, Jewish, and Muslim members, and other religions as well. Um, well, it sounds to me like you've created a pretty impossible challenge for me. It's like saying, prove to me you're not a criminal. And if I say I'm not a criminal, you'll say you don't believe me. Like, what do you want me to say to you exactly? What proof would you accept that I am legitimate in my beliefs? How do I prove to you that I am legitimate in my beliefs and I am sincere in my beliefs? How does anybody prove to anybody else the sincerity of their belief system? Right? How do I know that you're being sincere? Um, no, Jurian, you are very, clearly a very foolish person if you believe that is the case. We do not do sacrifices of any sort, Jurian. You're a very foolish person. Um, Well, but what if I'm sincere in my love of Freemasonry, which, by the way, is not a secret organization, because I'm here talking to you about it now. So if it was secret, why would I be here talking to you about it and how much I love it? I do not know what that is, Husi, so I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, I've never been to Sweden, but I have no doubt it's a wonderful country. I'd love to visit it one day. I'm sure it would be an absolute blast. Ah, is that the case? Freemasons are not a religion, so we're not pushing any religion. That's not what Freemasonry is all about, despite what you may believe to the contrary. Um, Again, you can believe whatever you want, but you're wrong. Oh, we got an anti-Semite in the audience. I thought anti-Semitic. It sounded like you were being anti-Semitic. And it's funny because today is actually, in Canada, the Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City mosque attack and action against Islamophobia. But as Mark Carney noted, Canadians remain steadfast in our commitment to build a country where all faiths can thrive. And I believe Freemasonry is also part of that. I believe that Freemasonry helps us create a country in which all faiths, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, Sikh, Indigenous, spiritual, can all thrive. Okay, well, I would say that the Freemasons helped me find certain truths, but you can think that. No, you're not going to call in. But again, what would be the proof that you need that I'm not a fraud? Um, and this goes back to this. This is an interesting debate that happens with just Freemasons in general. I've had this debate a million times where I say I'm a Freemason. Someone says, no, I'm not. I ask, what proof do they need? And they just say, no, you're not. So it's like, you don't believe me, you don't believe me. You know, I think Ruckus is another one of these people who definitely has a very bad life and is using Freemasonry and commenting on YouTube streams to ignore the fact that he has a crummy life. I'm not trying to recruit anybody, right? I love to talk about Freemasonry because I love Freemasonry. Other people, if you watch this and you join, great, or don't join. It's me talking about something I love. It's kind of like if I started a channel talking about scary movies. I don't expect anybody else to watch the movie. If you do, great. If you don't, great. It's just me talking about a thing I love. I did, because in my experience, people who spend time discussing or otherwise being involved in conspiracy theories usually lead pretty bad lives. I wouldn't say it's quite an ad hominem attack, because I'm not saying they're bad people. They might be stupid, but I'm not saying they're bad people, but I'm saying they're living bad lives and choosing to ignore the bad lives they're living by focusing on conspiracy theories. It's very similar to, in my experience, I worked in a jail for many years, and one of the things, and also probation officer, one of the things, if I was involved in a secret organization, why am I here talking about it? One of the things that I noticed is somebody could have for example, a substance abuse issue, and they would end up getting into a relationship with somebody else who had an even worse substance use issue than them. And the reason they would do that is because they could then spend all of their energies trying to fix the other person, and they did not have to focus on their own problems. Because it's hard to look in the mirror and admit you have a problem. It's easier to try to be the white knight savior to somebody else, and try to, fix them. And then you also have an excuse as to why you can never get better, because all your energies are focused on somebody else. I think for a lot of people who get into conspiracy theories about Freemasonry, it's the exact same thing. What they're doing ultimately is they have troubles in their life. Could be any number of troubles. We don't know what it is. Could be emotional problems, psychological problems. They could have substance use issues. They could be going through family drama. They could be getting divorced. Who knows what it is? Instead of looking in the mirror and saying, how can I deal with these problems in a healthy way? They go online, they find a conspiracy theory, they find a live stream like mine, and they just jump on and start commenting on it because it's easier to fight the Freemasons because all you need to do is post a bunch of nonsense online than it is to actually look in the mirror and deal with whatever problems that you have in your own life. And to the outside world, you may not look like you have any problems. You may have a good job. You may pay your taxes. You may have whatever it is you have. That doesn't change the fact that there's probably some problems, emotional or otherwise, that are forcing you or that encourage you to find solace by conspiracy theories and online foolishness. Whether I'm Jewish or not would not make a difference. Freemasonry does not discriminate. I could be Jewish, I could be Christian, I could be any faith or ethnicity. It would not matter to Freemasonry. That's one of the greatest things about Freemasonry. Yes, Dinobots or every immature person finds another person to try to fix instead of focusing on themselves, because they'd rather try to LARP as some type of hero, saving such and such a person or protecting the world from Freemasonry than dealing with their own problems and their own issues. Thoughts on 9/11? A tragedy. I mean, what else is there to say about it? An absolute tragedy. Well, on this stream, not many people are fans of me. On other streams, I got a lot of fans. I also have a bunch of people on Patreon, a bunch of members on my YouTube channel. I'm going to be posting some membership exclusive stuff very soon. So please pay attention for that, because I will be posting a bunch of Patreon and YouTube exclusive membership items very soon. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Become a Patreon member, become a YouTube member, all that jazz. I mean, I got Lucia. Lucia says, I love you. So there you go. This is a recording. Stop wasting people's time. If this was a recording, how could I read that? Again, Travis, nothing's wrong with being a Christian. And if that's what you believe, then more power to you. I have no issue with Christianity or Christians. I'm not going to say I'm a Christian myself. But again, you're making a category mistake, right? You're making a category error. Christianity fulfills the religion, is part of the religious space. Freemasonry is part of the civic space, or community space. They're different spaces. They have different purposes. They fulfill different needs of humanity. I am a Freemason, Lucia. I've been a Freemason for almost 20 years. It's crazy to think it's been that long. But yeah, 20 years. So can't believe it's been that long. But I'm grateful. Again, not everybody wants to be a Freemason, needs to be a Freemason, and it's perfectly fine. If you get your sense of purpose, fulfillment, whatever else through, let's say, church and church groups, more the better. More the better for you. I mean, I don't like the term secrets. Somebody used the term NDAs. I know private information, modes of recognition, although honestly, most of those are online at this point anyways, to be perfectly honest. Yes, Rooster. The ceilings in Masonic lodges in South America are incredible. There's this song I really like by Blue Rodeo called Lost Together. The first lines are, strange and beautiful are the stars tonight that dance above your head. And when I hear that song, I think about my visits to South America and how incredible they are. Well, thank you, AS. Please hit like and subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Keeps. I try to be on a roll. I hope you're saying that positively. It could be taken either way, but I hope you are saying that positively. By the way, Mr. Keeps, did you get your items yet? did you get the thing I mailed you about Scotland? Let me know if you got it, because I know with the weather, it might be taking a little bit longer. Freemasons do not have blood on their hands. What gives me peace about death? Asks Wolf Hyperborean. What I would say is, first of all, Wolf, please hit the like and subscribe button because I think you're new. Here's what I always say. If any Mason were to come to me and ask me, like, what happens after you die or what brings you peace, I would say, talk to your spiritual advisor. If you're Catholic, talk to your priest. If you're Christian, talk to your priest. If you're, a Muslim, talk to your imam, talk to your rabbi, talk to your spiritual leader or your elder if you're indigenous. It's not my place to say. However, I can speak for myself personally. What brings me peace is knowing that if I were to, knock on wood, if I were to keel over and die in the next hour, next minute, I would know that I had done all I could and tried as hard as I could to build a better community. I don't know if I've succeeded in that. I don't know, or build a better world. I think whether I succeeded in that or failed in that, I don't know. And I guess everybody can decide for myself, but I could at least have confidence in knowing that I tried. No, Freemasonry cannot turn you rich. I don't know if I believe in heaven and hell. I'm not sure. What I would also say, that one of my favorite stories ever that I really enjoyed, I think it was a Catholic, or might have been, I think it was Catholic story. I could be wrong, or maybe it was a Christian, anyways. But the story goes, because I think it was monks. This, priest went out to a bunch of young kids playing soccer. And he told the kids, Jesus will be coming within the next hour. What would you do? And one of the kids said, I would pray for forgiveness immediately for all of my sins. Another kid said, I would forgive everybody that I have to forgive. Another kid said, I would run to everybody I know and tell them I love them. Another kid said, I would try to find anybody who does not believe in the second coming and remind them to repent, that it's not too late. They went through, every kid said a different thing, or every student said a different thing that they would do. It was all a bunch of actions. And then this one student said, I would keep playing soccer. And the priest asked, why would you keep playing soccer? And the child responded, well, this morning I've already forgiven everybody that I needed to forgive. I've already asked for forgiveness, both to those I've wronged and to God. I've told everybody that I know already that I love them, who I love. And I've done my best to minister to whomever I could. And I've also done all of my chores and all the things that need to be done. So he basically said, I would just relax and do what I'm doing because I've already taken care of everything I need to take. I kind of try to live my life that way in a non-spiritual sense, in that I try to imagine if I were to die tomorrow or today or the next minute, have I done everything that I can do to leave this world in as good a place as I can? Now, obviously, there's always more to do, right? I have to do my laundry. Unfortunately, I would leave that if I died in the next hour. I would leave that for somebody else to do. You're never, but I've done as much as I possibly can in any moment to be able to go comfortably into the next life, whatever that is. I have no idea what's coming for me afterwards. And I try just to focus on what I can do here. And again, if you're thinking about what comes next, talk to, if you want to know what happens to your soul, talk to your spiritual believer. Well, and Dixon, so that's fine, right? But that, again, you're asking again, I can only give my view on it, which is I'm not that concerned with what happens to me in the next life. I'll get there and I'll figure it out. I don't have any answers for that. I am concerned about what I can do in this life. And I want to know, and I am brought peace and comfort by knowing that, at least in my opinion, I've done as much as I can at any given moment to make the world a better place. I have never had a psychedelic experience, Wolf. I do not know what a Big Red song is, but I like music. I mean, you are welcome to try to save me from hell. I would say be careful that you don't, you need to be careful in how you go about it. But I mean, more power to you. I suppose what I would say is I feel a obligation to those around me to create the best world I can for them down here. I'm not so much thinking about my immortal soul. I got a big nose because I'm awesome. Please hit like and subscribe. We don't have those, Rooster. If you're a Freemason and you're committing crimes, you don't get a get out of jail free card. You're going to end up in jail. At least you should. Hopefully that would never happen, Lucia. I mean, Freemasons are human beings. We get our passions rise. We get into arguments. But hopefully we deal with them appropriately. If we ever got into a fight, I suppose, in theory, you could be brought up on Masonic charges. Or brothers fight. Brothers get into fist fights. And they, they're family, so they apologize. Maybe you do that as well. Well, I appreciate you thinking that, Dixon. Like I said, my focus is what I can do down here to try to create a better world for those around me. And I'd like to think I've done as much as I can. I don't know if I've always succeeded, but I try my best. Well, Shaggy, let's put you in some timeout for a little bit. I'm going to actually end this stream because my phone is about to die. We're going to be back on, though, on my personal account tonight at 6:30. That's going to be a lot of fun. Well, thank you, Dixon. That's very kind. I never rebuked Christ and the church. I just said I have my own opinions. If you are Christian, more power to you. I have zero issues or concerns with, for example, the Christian faith. I would say the majority of Masons I know are Christians. So, again, it's a belief in a supreme being. That's the most important thing. Thank you, Wolf. YouTube.com/Cameron Adamson, all one word. YouTube.com/Cameron Adamson. Me and Smokey, 6:30 Eastern on YouTube. Did he? Oh, he did. Oh, well. What are you going to do? So be it. I'll have to... Yes, a smoke show. I'll have to maybe see if I can deal with that. I don't know how. I have to report the channel. There's always some pain in the butt to do, so. All right, I will see you guys later, and I'll talk to y'all soon. All right, have a great rest of the day. Talk to you guys later. I am protected from, I am protected from motorcycle accidents. All right, talk to you guys later.